Chapter 1. Why am I here? MC Pav. I don't remember who I was before, but I remember some things from my past life. Apparently my name used to be Henry Charles, and he was a fan of multiple anime, from Dragon Ball, Naruto, Bleach, Black Clover, Fairy Tail, Kengan Ashura, Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, and most importantly 7 Deadly Sins. Which is where I currently am, as I have to yet to know what character I am, since from what I can hear from the whispers in the room I am in, I was just born. As I slowly begin to open my eyes, I then see that I am on someone's chest, most precisely a woman's, as I try to see what she looks like, and I am astounded by what I see. She is beautiful, as she has dark black hair along with emerald green eyes and facial features that give her a resemblance to. Wait a minute. As I slowly turn my head, as I can barely see what I think is a mirror, and I see a patch of blonde hair in my reflection. Yep, I was reborn as Meliodas himself, and I now know what my mother looks like, as she was a mystery, as she wasn't exactly explored in both the manga or anime. She basically looks almost like an exact replica of Zeldris if he was female, although she seems to be a bit shorter, like around 4 feet 10. Oh, it seems my little prince has awoken. Your father could not see you as he had business to attend to, but he'll see you eventually, but don't worry, he'll grow to like you someday even if he doesn't show it to you. My mother says while cooing me with her fingers. I try to raise my infant fingers as I begin to play with mother's fingers, as I listen to her giggle as I do it. Speaking of which, where the hell are the demon doctors or healers in this place? Did they leave my mother here alone giving birth to me by herself? I wonder where I currently am right now, as this is mostly likely not purgatory, as I am within a building right now. Maybe this is a palace, considering that I am a demon prince. I wonder what I should do to become even stronger than my counterpart was during the Holy War, as it might happen within a couple centuries. As I was thinking about my current situation, someone was knocking on the door. Come in. I hear my mother say as a figure who is wearing dark armor with a noticeable flowing beard appears in the doorway. Yep, this is my father, the Demon King himself, as I see my mother give him a closed-eyed smile that causes shivers down my spine as I remember some events in the anime I watched in my past life. Sat. I hope you have a good explanation for missing your son's birth, dear. Or do I have show you what happens if you arrive late again? My mother suddenly gains a dark flowing aura, causing my father to sweat slightly, which is surprising to say the least. What did the hell did my mother do to make him fear her this much? I'm sorry, dear, it was because of the negotiations of a treaty with the goddesses. My father answers quickly, as he secretly hopes that it'll calm her down, as he doesn't want to be on the off end of her wrath again. He then sees me looking at him while laying in her arms covered with a blanket with blinking eyes, mostly likely confused at this entire situation in which I was, as I didn't know what the hell was going on. Did something happen to my father that would cause him to turn into the selfish B************ he was in the manga? Cause this is so out of character for him to do something like this. Then again, he, like my mother, wasn't entirely explored upon on what he was like during the childhood of my counterpart in the manga. Maybe I'll find out one day. For now, let's just sleep. I slowly begin to fall asleep as mother gives me a soft smile, which causes my father to slightly smile as well, seeing this lovely moment. Well, first chapter officially done. Each chapter will slowly get longer. Hope you all had a good time reading this. Next chapter will be a time skip. Dragon Lord 04 creators, thoughts. 14 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 2. Meeting Chandler. 5 years later. A blonde toddler can be seen strolling down the hallways while running from his pursers, who were asked personally by his father to bring him to meet his new instructor, but it is proving difficult as he would evade their clutches at the last second, which irritated them to no end. Master Meliodas, would you kindly please stop running? Says one of the demon guards as he is on the brink of collapsing in exhaustion as he was out of shape. Your father personally ordered us to bring you to Sir Chandler's quarters, and we must abide by his command. Says another who is not as exhausted. All right, but you could have started with that first, as you practically barged into my room without restraints. Otherwise I would have thought that you were going kidnap me, Meliodas says, chuckling, causing the guards to grit their teeth while holding themselves back at their prince's ignorance to the situation. Damn brat, they both thought as they lead Meliodas to Chandler's quarters. A few minutes later. The guards stop at the door of Chandler's quarters as they proceed to knock on it while Meliodas was whistling in an innocent fashion, like he wasn't responsible for their incompetence to bring him here sooner, causing their eyes to twitch violently. Come in. Says a gruffled voice coming from the other side as the door magically opens as the guards nod at Meliodas as he heads inside. Meliodas Pav. As I go inside the room to meet my instructor, I can visibly hear the guards sigh in relief. Not that I blame them, but they don't realize that I was using them to train myself in case if I were to get kidnapped by anyone for that matter. Hard to believe that it's been around 5 years or so since I was reborn into this world. I learned several new things that weren't explored in the manga. Well, for one, turns out this palace that my father rules looks like your typical cliché castle, except the colors are darker in depth, and another thing, all demons have to reach up to a certain age before they can awaken their power of darkness. And a demon's power of darkness varies depending on what type of demon you are. Some may have an increased capacity to wield greater power while others may not be so lucky. Those who do not have the affinity to wield it are often outcasts within this society, and unless they somehow manage to attain it, the way they are treated by other demons is too gruesome to describe, as I had the displeasure of witnessing such an event. Basically, it was a massacre, as it happened when my mother took me shopping along with some guards who were asked to protect us, as many demons stood out of our way, mostly out of fear. Then, suddenly we heard some shouts from a nearby alley as I watched some low-class demon get slaughtered into mere pieces, but what shocked me the most is that the expressions that my mother and the guards had were normal, like these events happen too often. Then again, this isn't a human type of society, so I can understand, but it seems that I still have some ounce of humanity within me. Back to the main topic. As I enter into the room, what I thought was a small room turned out to be what would be described as a dojo or a gym mixed into one, as I see my instructor, who would eventually become very attached to me as time goes on. His flowing spiky green hair and goatee, along with the demon mark presented in his right eye that look like two settings buttons connected to one another, along with his middle-age appearance. Yep, it is Chandler, as I see him approach me as he stops right in front of me, as I now realize how small I am. "So you're the one the old chump asked me to train, huh?" he says with a bemused tone. "Now the first thing we'll do is to awaken your darkness, and from what I can sense within you, your potential is unfathomable as expected of the son of the Demon King." He then uses his magic, as I don't know what he is doing, but my body is beginning to feel different, but at the same time it feels calming. "Well, it seems that I made the right decision in accepting your father's request to become your instructor, young Meliodas," he says as he sees the first stage demon mark formed over my right eye, as my emerald eyes turn black with a very dark violet tint to them. "Now then." He then clears his throat as he prepares what he has for me to do for today, since it was the first day that he's going to train me. 8 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 3. Training Sessions. A few months later. Meliodas Pav. The first few weeks were torturous, as I had to remain in a handstand without moving for a few hours, and time felt so slow during this process, as I was on the brink of giving up multiple times. On top of that, I was instructed by Chandler to keep my demon mark on for as long as I could, as it would stabilize my current power to ensure that it doesn't go out of control, which added on to the fatigue I was feeling. The first day was so simple, as I was only told to do some moderate exercises like push-ups and sit-ups, but they were simple due to me already doing them before in my room, as I was determined to be even better than my manga counterpart, as I plan on changing some events that happened in the canon story. But I might forget, considering that the major events of the manga happen around 3,495 years from now, aside from the Holy War, which is actually possibly going to happen in around 100 years or so. How I know the exact years is that my soon-to-be little brother Zeldris is not going to be born for another 245 years or so, which is around the time when it ends. I recently discovered that high-ranked demons have a low birth rate, as I had heard my parents doing the deed each time my father comes back from what he usually does, which was managing the demon race and ensuring that the treaty with the goddesses remains in effect. Possibly noticing that I could hear them, my father later lectured me about his version of the birds and bees, as he explained that while low-ranked demons like the red and gray demons have high birth rates, high-ranked demons like me don't, as it is like if you were to put on a condom but multiply it by 3, and that is the percent of the birth rate of high-ranked demons. Sometimes it was hard to sleep hearing them, but I soon got used to it by the second week of Chandler's training by shoving pillows over my head, making me slept peacefully since then. Speaking of training, I am now currently using a wooden sword against a wooden dummy, as Chandler wanted me to practice my footwork on where to precisely strike against the enemy. After around 30 minutes or so after practicing with the mannequin, Chandler, who was already starting to bond with me, then told me to sprint several laps around the castle wall as he performed magic to increase the weight on me, as I was already used to doing it for months. So with my demon mark activated, sprinted as much as I could without stopping, and the best way to describe of gravity from his magic would be around 10 times more than normal. I don't know how long I was outside the walls, but my body was already on the brink of collapse, but I pushed through the fatigue due to my mentor Chandler encouraging me to push further, as he essentially yelled out the fact that I had only one lap to go. After making it through the final lap, I collapsed due to exhaustion, as I could hear Chandler cry manly tears, as he was proud of my accomplishment, as I felt him cancel his magic, which lifted off the gravity as he picks me up over his shoulder as we headed off home. Young Meliodas, I know that my training can be difficult at times, but yet, you still pull through despite the circumstances of you giving up vastly increasing with each training session. I can see some tears beginning to form in his eyes. What I'm trying to say is that I'm very glad that your father ordered me to train you as to become a candidate for the throne of becoming the next Demon King. So from now on, I will address you as Sir Meliodas. He finishes as manly tears begin to fall out of his eyes as he enters through the city gates while approaching the palace as the demons passing by give him weird looks and even weirder when they see me on his shoulder as they wonder why their prince is on some random old man's shoulder. Sat. I wouldn't be surprised if rumors were to spread about him at this rate. I giggle internally as I wonder what other magical abilities I should learn that can help me out later in the future. I know later down the line, Chandler is going to train me on how to use full counter or at least the magical portion of it that only reflects magical attacks. Despite its name, it doesn't deserve the courtesy of being called full counter as I remember that Esterosa had a similar ability of the same name but instead it only reflected physical attacks instead. I've decided. When Chandler gives me the opportunity to learn it, I want to not only learn the magical aspect but also the physical portion of full counter and only then will I consider it to be truly known as full counter. Another chapter done. Next chapter will also have a bit of time skip as it will be when Meliodas will learn full counter. Dragonlord 04 creators, thoughts? 14 comments 0 vote. Download the app for greater interaction. You can chat with me about my writing experience apart from the comments section. Dragonlord 04. Download app now. Chapter 4. Learning about full counter. 2 years later. The past 2 years were decent aside from training with Chandler who now often encourages me to do great and how I'm guaranteed to become the next Demon King. I only recently turned 7 a week ago as the only ever time I spend with my parents is only during one day of the week as my father being the Demon King is not home often. And my mother being the queen often goes on diplomat missions to help out the races such as the fairies and giants. She often stays away from human villages because well, let's just say it's one of the reasons why father fears her. How do I know this? Well, when they did their usual bedtime sparring I might have overheard some explicit details about how she once slaughtered an entire village while drunk. Moving on, it was finally the day that Chandler was going to teach the ability of full counter or at least the magical portion of it. Why I didn't ask earlier was because the past 2 years training from him were only for how long I can maintain my demon mark. As of now, I can maintain it for several days at a time without noticing. Even my muscles are starting to form as I am already developing a 4-pack as I trained very intensely every day for the past 2 years. I managed to master several fighting styles using a wooden sword while under Chandler's instructions and he was astounded to see that I quickly mastered so many as he would then nearly hug me to death as he would yell out that I was a prodigy among prodigies. Well, he ain't wrong as I used some of the moves from the various different anime I've seen from the memories from my past life. Now that I think about it, doesn't the original Gauther replace Mael with the persona of Esterosa? If he managed to change everyone's memories to make everyone believe that he was my brother, who's to say that he wiped out everyone's memories from what they remember about my mother? That would explain why no one mentions it or at least refers to her in the manga. Damn, Og Gauther is much more F***D up than I thought. Seems I'll have to take some meditating lessons later down the line to protect my mind from psychic attacks like that. Back to the main topic at hand, I once again head out of my room towards my mentor's quarters as I can't help but feel excited about this as not only will I learn a highly devastating ability but I'll add on to it by training myself to obtain the physical aspect of it. Once I learn those, it will be very difficult for someone to defeat me as I don't plan to play with those who are weaker than me as I plan on killing them immediately from the start unless they are arrogant as I plan to make individuals like that beg for their deaths once I'm done with them. I notice some guards sweat nervously in my presence as I walk by as I become confused for a second before I realize that my dark thoughts caused me to smile in an intimidating fashion as I quickly return to an expressionless look as I berate myself for thinking like that. Pretending like that never happened, I knock on the door like a gentleman as I hear my mentor call out, "Come in." As the door opens via by magic upon his order as I step inside as I become intrigued at the group of demons in the room as I never had any sparring partners before. Sir Meliodas, today is the first day that I'll begin to teach you the magical ability full counter. Now you may be wondering why I brought these gentlemen here. I only brought them so you can get a first-hand experience on what full counter is and what it can do. He lectures me as he orders the demons to use their most powerful magical attacks against him which were. I then hear him shout, "Full counter." As he swipes his weapon across at the attacks as I then watch as their magical attacks get immediately reflected back at them with double the force as I watch the demons try to dodge. Some narrowly escape but others get incinerated on the spot as it was too late for their instincts to act up as they become a pile of ashes. He then turns around ignoring the fact that he just committed murder. What you just saw was full counter, a magical ability that allows a user to reflect magical attacks back at their opponent with double the force. He lectures with a natural tone. Is there a full counter that reflects physical attacks instead? I ask since I wanted to know who the hell taught Esterosa the physical version of full counter. He widens his eyes for a second before returning to normal. As expected of Sir Meliodas, I honestly didn't think you would ask that question, but yes, there is, but although it is still a great ability like the one you just witnessed, but it is not as effective due to the fact that most of the opponents you'll most likely face in the future will always use their magical abilities against you. I can still teach it to you if you want to. He finishes his instruction on what he knows about full counter. Yash. I bow in appreciation as I am determined to learn how to use full counter, causing him to tear up slightly in great respect for me. Another chapter finished. Next is Meliodas' training to obtain full counter. Dragonlord 04 creators, thoughts. 21 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 5. Basically survival training 1 quarter. Few days later. 995. 9 to 996. 997. 9 arg. 998. 9 to 99. 1000. I then collapse onto my knees in a puddle of my own sweat, dropping the sword that was given to me by Chandler, as he said that it'll help me learn full counter, or at least the physical aspect, since I chose that one instead of its magical half like my counterpart did, as he decided to send me out here in this forest that was apparently very dangerous from the rumors I've heard from time to time whenever I got a break from training. I would have trained myself to acquire it in my own way, as Chandler had forgotten how to use that version of full counter. I lay on the ground exhausted as I had finished practicing my sword slashes, as I see that I managed to destroy some portions of this forest along with some demon-like animals in the process, but hey, free food for me. You know what the best part is? I accidentally managed to obtain Hellblaze in the process, so the animals I accidentally killed are like 3 times the size of the animals from my previous life, and even the rabbits are like as big as me. Turning off my demon mark is to recover my stamina faster. I slowly sit up as to see my surroundings. Looking to my left as the sword Chandler gave me, as it is basically destroyed from all the slashes I performed, and being enchanted by Hellblaze didn't do it justice as the metal is scattered across the ground. Looking up to the dark purple sky, I can't help but wonder if it even rains in the demon realm, as it has yet to do so, but how the hell am I going to practice if my sword is broken? So much for being the most durable sword they had in the palace, or so my instructor said right before I left the city walls. Maybe this is finally my chance to meditate, since I am in a natural environment after all, but after I recover enough of my stamina as I lay back down onto the ground. Couple minutes later. After recovering enough to finally stand up, although a bit barely, I can see that I indirectly caused a forest fire as I watch everything in front of me burn, as it spreads continuously in one direction, as I watch with a monotone slightly awed at the fact that my efforts are paying off. After watching the forest burn for a few more minutes, I then decide to sit down and cross my legs as I place my hands upon my knees, as I then begin to close my eyes as I begin to meditate, ignoring the sounds of animals dying in agony. Third person POV. As Meliodas meditates, a thin dark black aura can be seen surrounding his figure as he unconsciously manipulates his darkness, as he focuses his determination to make his mind become stronger alongside his physical capabilities, as the animals around him become afraid, as all they can see is an alpha predator currently waiting for its next meal. What it seemed like hours within his mind turned out to be around 15 minutes, as he slowly opens his eyes to see in front of him an area of burnt down forest in only like one direction, as the rest of the area around remained unaffected. Man, maybe I should focus on manifesting more of my abilities rather than just overcompensating my training routine just to obtain one ability. Although the more powerful the ability is, the harder it is to obtain and control. But I need to find somewhere to stay if I'm going to be out here for a while, says Meliodas while scratching his head in a chibi fashion with a sweat drop on his head after seeing the destruction he caused. He then stands back up as his legs cramp a bit from meditating, although feeling fatigued from all 1,000 sword slashes he did for who knows how long, as he then looks at the severely broken blade, as he can't help but feel slightly nostalgic looking at the weapon, as it conveniently looks similar to a certain dragon handle. Tossing the now useless weapon into the forest, Meliodas, having recovered enough stamina, activates his demon mark in case if he were to get caught off guard by one of these demonic animals that could easily eat him if he isn't careful enough. I should find something to accommodate for that sword I broke. Maybe I can attempt to create one out of the bones of these animals, thought Meliodas as he was thinking on what to do since his weapon broke. Looking at the corpses of the somehow perfectly cooked animals that died in agony from the forest fire he caused, Meliodas then decides to take a bite to see how they taste, since it's been hours since he's had a meal, which were the provisions provided to him by his mentor. Tasting the cooked animal meat brought a sense of relief, as it was delicious, as he decided to see if he can snap the bones into a particular angle, as this beast is around 3 times his size. Where am I going to put the rest? Meliodas then begins to wonder where he can find a suitable place to store the large pile of dead but cooked very well animals. Might as well spend some of my time creating a suitable living place in this forest, as I plan to be here for a long time, says Meliodas as he manages to carry the pile of animals to who knows where, as the forest itself covers at least 10% of the demon realm. Training arc to obtain the physical counterpart of full counter is now underway. Expect multiple time skips as time perceived by demons is far different than ours. Meliodas PL, 5000. Meliodas PL, first stage demon mark, 6500. Dragonlord 04 creators, thoughts. 17 comments 0 vote. Chapter 6. Basically survival training 2 quarters. Time skip. 50 years later. A messy blonde-haired teenager can be seen sitting down on a pile of deceased creatures with a monotone expression as he looks down on the short sword that he created with his own hands as he ignores the blood rain that he caused when he slaughtered the creatures below him. The handle is made up of a monstrous behemoth he killed around 30 years ago, and it was the first battle where he nearly lost his life as he decided to decorate it with his darkness changing tone to a grayish type color mixed in with red. The edges, albeit slightly curved, have a sharpness that can instantly tear through multiple creatures at once with ease, and it can be further enhanced with Hellblaze. The teen is also wearing a V-neck red vest, made with the skin of indigenous species that he killed over the years, as it has 3 silver diamond-shaped buttons. The vest covers his shoulders and slightly exposes his chest with a small upturned collar, and slightly opens at the hem. The black gloves and knee-length pants have a leather-like appearance to it, and both have the same diamond-shaped button on it. The teen stands around 5 feet 2 in height as he has very well-developed lean muscular figure along with well-dense abdominal muscles. 57 years, huh? Said the teen, who is revealed to be Meliodas as he begins to stand as he manifests a container via magic as he raises his right hand up as purple bright-colored souls are forced out of the deceased creatures as the container then becomes filled to the brink of spilling out. He then lifts his short sword up to the container as he then opens it as the souls then spill out onto it before infusing into the weapon as it faintly glows purple before regressing back to normal. He then snaps his fingers as the container then disappears as he looks over his master-crafted weapon that literally took blood and sweat amounts of effort to create from scratch. Hard to believe that this weapon is very useful. He says, looking at the weapon as he named it Godsbane, from which the name originated from, was based on a sword that could steal the souls of those who were misfortunate enough to cross blades against those who owned such a weapon as his does something similar. It doesn't just absorb souls, it becomes stronger over time with each strike that he lands successfully, but not at a noticeable rate nonetheless. But this weapon is already 5 times stronger than it was when it was first made around 28 years ago. While internally monologuing his thoughts about this magnificent weapon, he narrowly evades a claw that would have slashed off one of his entire arms off as Meliodas in a swift fashion brings his sword up and then slashes it down faster than the blink of an eye, causing a delayed effect as before the large bear-like creature could respond. About half of its body then begins to slide down as its blood begins to fill the ground as it then dies with a permanent confused expression on its face. Meliodas Pav. To think that one actually managed to survive my onslaught, although I would consider it as a warm-up, but it seems that the feral creatures within this dense forest are becoming desperate to kill me. After I put Godsbane back in its scabbard on my back as I then use my darkness to create some wings from my back as I take off into the air towards the place in which I consider my home, as it's been around 50 years in human terms since I left Father's castle via upon my mentor Chandler's request. I wonder, should I also train under Cusick after I obtain and master both aspects of full counter? From what I can remember from my previous life as a human, he taught my soon-to-be-born brother Zeldris more advanced styles of swordsmanship, considering that he went toe-to-toe with Archangel in the manga and actually managed to get the upper hand. Maybe, just maybe, that once I complete Chandler's training, I could persuade Cusick to train me to further improve upon my swordsmanship skills. But the thing is, I haven't seen or even met him during those 2 years while training under Chandler. Third person Pav. As Meliodas flies his way to his home within this vastly dense forest, he begins to wonder if it is possible to create other elements instead of fire with his darkness. What if he can manipulate his darkness to create ice as well, similar to a certain half-and-half individual? Maybe I should look at that map again to see if there is any environments that can instill freezing temperatures to those daring to enter. Meliodas mentions as he travels at half the speed of sound as he comes closer to his house. Once he arrives, his house can be described to be around 2 stories tall as it is made out of the skull of a gigantic demonic-like beast that looks similar to a mix of an ape and a lion, which is the same behemoth that almost killed him around 30 years ago. The area around his home is camouflaged with scent of several predators he killed over the years, so that way, nothing that dares to intrude will come near his home. Time to figure a plan for what I need to do next, as I can feel myself coming closer to achieving full counter's physical counterpart. Says Meliodas as he then deactivates his demon mark as he heads inside and closes the door as he puts his sword and scabbard onto a nearby rack where many other items of interest can be seen. Ranging from clothing to trophies of the various amounts of the beasts that actually managed to put up a fight against him, so he decided to honor them by making their heads into trophies. I wonder how she's doing. Meliodas then proceeds to open a door to a room as he approaches a pool filled to the brink with miasma as a snake-like egg with purple dots around its structure can be seen floating in the liquid as it has yet to hatch. Another chapter finished. With the introduction of Meliodas's new weapon and a similar someone. What will happen next? Meliodas PL, 35,600. Meliodas First Stage Demon Mark PL, 46,280. Dragonlord 04 Creators, Thoughts. 18 comments 0 vote. Chapter 7. Basically Survival Training 3/4. As Meliodas looks over the condition of Meliscula as he does every other day, he can't help but remember when he first found her. Flashback, a year ago. Meliodas did his usual routine in killing the behemoths around his home or for training purposes as he was determined to become more proficient with his hand-to-hand combat as he was too focused on his skills as a swordsman as he can't just rely on God's bane to handle all of his problems. Before he could fly towards his house, deciding to use his enhanced senses in case if one of these beasts survived his daily slaughter. He begins to hear some sounds in the distance as he can't help but feel curious on what the sounds are. The sounds seem to be heard towards the southeast section of the forest around 3 miles away. Meliodas then suddenly begins to sprint towards the direction where the sounds are coming from. As he parkours through multiple trees at once, the sounds become louder the closer he gets as it sounds similar but different at the same time. Sounds like a fight to the death from the sounds coming from this area. Thought Meliodas as he remembers the patterns since he's been in this forest for nearly 50 years as he stops as the sounds are now right in front of him as he then hides in a nearby bush as he uses his enhanced senses to analyze what the potential reason is for such weak creatures in his eyes to be fighting about. What he sees causes his eyes to slightly widen for a split second as he sees a 60-foot giant white-hooded snake-like creature with dark red stripes fighting against a giant minotaur-like demon as they both have severe wounds on each other's bodies. What caused such a expression in Meliodas was not the two creatures fighting to the death, but it is the small egg located a couple meters behind them as it had features that were oddly familiar to a certain character in his past life. But before he could proceed to move out of his position, he watches the snake demon perform a action out of sheer desperation, not caring if it dies as it pounces onto the minotaur as it then attempts to go for its neck, determined to rip it out. But before it could do so, the latter grabs onto one of its fangs as it rips out, causing the snake to roar in immense pain before getting tossed away by several meters, landing right next to where Meliodas saw the egg, which is most likely her unborn child. I want to put a stop to this. I may be tempted to kill both of them as they are both very vulnerable due to the amount of wounds on their bodies, but even I am not that cruel to retort to cowardly tactics that are often disguised as a heroic act in the eyes of those who don't truly understand what it means to have honor. Mutters Meliodas as he will not interfere in this endeavor, and as much as he wants to kill these two beasts, he would do so immediately if their bodies had no wounds as he continues to observe what the potential outcome might be. She needs to finish this on her own even if it costs her own life. Thought Meliodas as he sneakily bypasses their vision and enters into another nearby bush as he takes a closer look as to get a better look on the final outcome of this confrontation as it is revealed that the snake-like demon is a female. The minotaur can be seen having a sadistic expression on its face as it slowly approaches the badly damaged snake demon who is already on the brink of death as she gives one last look to her egg before seeing Meliodas in the corner of her eye as she gives him a look that says, "Take care of my child in my stead." As if Meliodas could understand what she is saying, he nods in respect as he watches the snake in a final act of will with all her might once again pounces onto the demon minotaur with the strength she has left. She then begins to wrap around its body as she begins to constrict herself as tight as possible as she begins to suffocate the living hell out of it. With her remaining fang, she bites into its shoulder injecting her poison, but as a result, she in return gets stabbed by the fang that was forcibly ripped out as she bleeds out as she watches her opponent suffer from the poison that was injected into its body. It eventually dies as Meliodas slowly gets out of the bush as he slowly approaches her with unknown intentions. When he arrives in front of her, he then begins to pat her head as she very weakly barely manages to open her eyes to see what his intentions are. "I'll ensure that I will caretake of her, don't you worry about it, you can pass on knowing that your child will be safe in my hands." Meliodas then pulls out God's bane as he then puts her out of her misery as he then wills her soul out as it levitates above his right hand as he turns around as he walks toward where he can see the egg. Once he comes close to the egg, he then moves the soul as it then gets absorbed into the egg. "I'll make sure that despite your death, you get to live on through your child," mutters Meliodas as he then carefully grabs the egg as he then manifests his wings of darkness as he takes off into the air towards the direction to his home. Present time. Meliodas' house. Watching Meliscula slowly absorb the miasma in an aquarium-like structure while surrounded by the unpleasant vapor that is presently contained within a dome, Meliodas assumes that she'll hatch in around a decade's time. He then heads out of the room as he then goes into another one where stacks of notes can be seen as Meliodas heads towards a nearby shelf and grabs a journal as he then grabs a quill as he then finds an empty page and writes down an entry about how desperate the animal-like demons are becoming recently as if something was ordering them to kill him. If this is the case, then he'll gladly take the challenge if the one ordering them makes their presence known as this is what he believes will help him acquire the physical counterpart of full counter. Only time will tell. Another chapter finished. Did a flashback as to how Meliodas found Meliscula. Dragonlord 04 creators, thoughts. 23 comments 0 vote. Chapter 8. Basically survival training 4 quarters. A few days later. Meliodas can be seen meditating on his front porch in order to prepare for what's to come as the time has come for what he believes is his test to obtaining full counter's physical counterpart. Multiple types of natural disasters ranging from instances of the demon realm's version of earthquakes, tornadoes made up of flames, sinkholes, and even ice storms have drastically increased over the past few days, which coincidentally might have proved his theory about the animals in the forest being ordered by some kind of alpha. It's about damn time. Meliodas then begins to stand up as the ground then begins to vibrate in a violent fashion, but he stands there unaffected nor fearing the immense aura he can sense in the far distance around 150 square miles away from his current position. Instead, a smirk begins to form on his face with his demon mark manifesting as he relishes in the possibility of a challenge as it is time to prove himself to see if he is worthy enough for the chance of obtaining the physical half of full counter. Putting God's Bane away in his scabbard, Meliodas will only use it if he gets the chance to attempt the magical ability without restraint, ensuring that he can focus on fighting whatever it is he can sense with just his bare hands. Manifesting his wings, he takes off into the air heading towards the direction on what he believes is the creature responsible for these events happening in this area. Traveling at immensely fast speeds, Meliodas can't help but remember from his past life surrounding the noticeable power increase that the holy knights get from drinking the blood of a red demon in the first season of the anime. If that were the case, what would happen if someone were to drink his blood? He then suddenly stops his flight while summoning a silver-like cup which is made out of a claw from a large wolf-like demon he killed yesterday. Grabbing God's Bane out its scabbard, he puts his wrist above the cup before cutting it, making it bleed out, which slowly fills the cup. Someday, I'll find out if this comes true, mutters Meliodas as he watches the cup fill up with his blood with an unreadable expression. Once the cup completely fills up, he then snaps his fingers, causing the cup to vanish out of thin air, waiting for its use in the near future. Once that's done, Meliodas then continues his flight towards the magical aura as he mentally prepares himself for what might be the second battle where he has to be serious or else he'll die. Coming closer to the source of what's causing the disruption in the forest's ecosystem, the aura present seems to intensify almost as if it was waiting for him to appear as Meliodas slowly descends down onto the ground as his wings disappear. When the aura seems to be right in front of him, Meliodas in return manifests his own aura, which is one of darkness opposite to the one opposing it. One of white-blue against one of darkness as a creature of great height begins to burrow out of the ground as Meliodas jumps back onto a tree branch, as this might be the biggest thing he's ever going to fight so far. This grotesque of a creature stands around 45 meters in height with a humanoid-like body along with scales spread across its entire figure. Its head is shaped similar to a mix between a dragon and an eagle. It then begins to look down on Meliodas with what seems to be a mocking expression, not realizing that it may have just made what might possibly be the biggest mistake of its life. I'm not like any other opponent you have fought before. Meliodas with a smile on his face launches off the tree towards the creature as it becomes shocked with such speed as before it could move. Meliodas lands a perfectly timed punch onto its face, causing the creature to stagger. Before it could process what just happened, Meliodas while in the air launches several blasts of darkness towards it while quickly manifesting his wings as he attempts to barrel into the creature while it's stunned, but the creature narrowly dodges on instinct as Meliodas looks down on the creature from the air. From what I can tell from our first meeting so far is that you repeatedly underestimate your opponents, believing that they are just playthings for you, just so you can feel good about yourself about believing that you are the strongest thing alive. But the truth is, those who believe they are the strongest are often the first ones to die. Meliodas then waits for the creature to make its move as his words seem to have an effect on the creature's mentality as it begins to quiver in intense rage, causing him to smirk as he would rather fight an opponent at their best. The creature while enraged begins to jump at Meliodas while in return make his wings tense up as he then flaps them down as he then proceeds to swoop in at the creature with a punch ready to go. When their fists meet, a shockwave occurs shaking their surroundings as they at high speeds then begin fighting at what seems to be their full power as they go blow for blow with one another. Despite his small size compared to Alpha, Meliodas is actually putting up a great fight regardless of not using his weapon. He has to wait until the perfect moment to utilize the opportunity to attempt it using full counter. He then takes a lethal blow to his face as he is launched through several trees as he spits out blood, showing how damaging the punch was. Catching himself in the air via his wings, he turns around only to met with a fist approaching his body as he smirks as this is the perfect opportunity. Now's my chance. Using his great reflexes, Meliodas quickly takes Godsbane out of its scabbard as he swiftly positions himself into a stance preparing to meet the attack at a close second. Full counter. Meliodas then spun Godsbane across the creature's approaching fist as nothing happens for a few seconds before suddenly. Splat. The creature's body then suddenly explodes as the upper half of its body goes missing as its blood then begins to splatter everywhere as the lower half of its body crashes into the ground. Meliodas then begins to smile in victory and accomplishment as although it took him 50 years to do but he was too focused on attaining other abilities along the way but he had finally done it. He managed to successfully acquire full counter or at least half of what it truly is as now all is left is the magical version of the same name. Yosh. Although sadly I lost the chance to carve its head into a trophy but I still got a devastating ability in the end, thought Meliodas as he then forces the creature's soul into Godsbane making it glow slightly before reverting back to normal as he uses magic to make what remains of the creature's body levitate as he then puts it into a contained space which makes it vanish as he plans to use it to make cloth to repair his clothing. Maybe I should continue to stay here if I'm going to take care of Meliscula once she hatches. Mutters Meliodas making his wings appear as he takes off towards the direction to his house. Alright, another chapter done and the training arc is finished as finally Meliodas has obtained the physical counterpart of full counter. Expect a time skip next chapter as Meliodas will the responsibility of taking care of someone. Dragonlord 04 creators, thoughts? 15 comments 0 vote. Chapter 9. Caring for a faithful snake. 10 years later. Meliodas Pav. Today was the day that Meliscula was supposed to hatch, and to be honest I was nervous as I don't have any experience taking care of anyone. All I did in my life so far was either train or kill, maybe this will be the key to not drown out my emotions. I get out of my bed which I added some more material made out of the skin of the alpha I killed 10 years prior as I stretch out my body before putting on my outfit. Heading out of my room as I head towards the kitchen as I cook. I don't know how my counterpart managed to make the food texture look great but the overall taste was terrible enough to make the next holder of sunshine vomit light itself. I will admit, I was exactly like this at first, but with intense practice, all I can cook now are essentially at the basic level in terms of taste alone. At least it was progress, even if it is a slow one at that. Finishing my breakfast, I head towards the room where I keep Meliscula as she is due to hatch any minute now. Over the years since I promised her mother, I've also collected vast amounts of miasma for Meliscula knowing that she slowly absorbed it as I then prepared bottles filled with the substance knowing that she'll need it. Oh wow, I already sound like a parent setting up for their first ever child. Ignoring my previous thoughts, I then approach her room as I open the door to check on her condition. Her egg seems to twitch signifying that she's about to hatch as I watch this unfold with curiosity since I am basically witnessing the birth of one of the best waifus in history or at least from my previous life as I won't force her to love me in a romantic type of way unless she wants to. For now, I will raise her as if she was my own child and despite being 67 years old, I'm still not fully grown. From what I remember before arriving in this forest 60 years ago is that demons generally become full-grown adults by the time they reach the age of 100, and they stay that way for the next 9 centuries. Third-person Pav. Meliodas watches closely as the egg begins to crack little by little as it twitches violently as it quickly absorbs the miasma around it before suddenly. Crack. The egg then cracks open immediately as a small half-meter-tall poisonous snake-like hatchling pops out of the eggshell as Meliodas watches this with rapid blinking eyes as he expected something else to happen. The snake has red eyes and a line of purple dots along her body as she opens her eyes for the very first time as she takes in her new surroundings as she then sees Meliodas who in turn awkwardly waves at her as she looks at him with a blank expression. She slowly slithers her way towards him while Meliodas watches wondering what she is about to do. Coming up to him, she slithers her way up on his body causing Meliodas to freeze up slightly as she begins to wrap herself around his neck. Now completely covering his neck, she uses her snake tongue to lick his face claiming him as part of her territory. Huh. Seems she's already attached to me, both figuratively and literally. Thought Meliodas while trying to not disturb the sleeping Meliscula who's wrapped around his neck like a scarf. Meliodas who is not all bothered by this decides to head out of the room before grabbing Godsbane off a nearby rack and then heads out of his house hoping to find something to catch his interest. The forest has been slightly peaceful ever since he killed the alpha overlooking this entire piece of land as it has been boring but at least he can get some quiet around here now. Maybe I should see how everyone is doing back at Father's Kingdom. Thought Meliodas as he ponders about what to do next while Meliscula soothes her face against his cheek seemingly trying to comfort him. Every creature around here now seems to fear my presence. Is it because I'm considered the alpha around here now? Was it really a big deal that I killed that arrogant beast 10 years ago? If so, that actually explains the current dilemma I'm in. 'Cause every creature I came across would off themselves without hesitation, and it surprised me the first time, but I ignored it for a while due to gathering up their materials for future uses. Now I just feel bad to see such creatures who even didn't bother to process their inevitable death as they went out fighting despite all odds. Mutters Meliodas as Meliscula seems to give him a weird look but disregards it. She then yawns before going to sleep while around his neck. Meliodas smiles at this for what seems to be the first time he's ever done so in a long time. While carefully putting Godsbane in its scabbard as to not cut her by accident as he summons his wings and flies off into the air. A few hours later. While killing some animals along the way and putting their souls into Godsbane, Meliodas wonders if he should train himself in the art of dual wielding in case if he were to either obtain or create Lostbane. As he thinks on this, he feels his neck get tighter, showing that Meliscula is beginning to wake up as he uses one of his most useful abilities to summon a bottle filled with miasma as he then feeds it to her as she drinks it with what seems to be a simile on her face while closing her eyes, showing that she's enjoying the taste of the miasma. While flying through the skies, Meliodas for the first time since he came here in this forest around 6 decades ago begins to take in the view of the entire environment. Ranging from waterfalls, rivers, mountains, caves, and even some of the wildlife are seen interacting with one another as he then deactivates his demon mark while inhaling the air as he takes this all in. While enjoying the sights, Meliscula, who finished drinking her miasma, begins to ruffle her head against Meliodas as he looks down on her with soft simile as he quickly grabs the bottle before it could fall into the abyss. Sat. You sure finished your drink quickly, Meliscula. In fact, it was a big bottle you just drank from and you finished it fast. Meliodas then begins to pat her head while giving her a closed eye simile as Meliscula begins to rub her head into his hand, finding the head pat very comfortable. I've decided, I am going to protect her with all my heart, and I am going to raise her right to ensure that she doesn't become sadistic as she was in the manga. Maybe not completely though, but enough not to fully change her completely once she gains her human form. Thought Meliodas as he quickly activates his demon mark while turning around and propelling himself in the direction of his house. A few hours later. Arriving at his house, Meliodas enters into his home while Meliscula, who is seemingly stubborn, refuses to leave his neck as he then sighs, knowing that she is comfortable although a bit questionable, but he doesn't go that far into detail, assuming that she sees him as her father, not noticing that she basically marked him as her future mate when she licked him, meaning that despite being in an egg for a decade doesn't mean that she can't hear anything, showing that she is much more smarter than she looks. First slice of life chapter in the story is the next arc will involve Meliodas going back to his father's kingdom while meeting some similar faces along the way. Meliodas PL 47,300. Meliodas first stage demon mark PL 61,490. Next chapter will be released on Saturday. Dragonlord 04 creators, thoughts. 23 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 10. Visiting 1/5. A few months later. Location. Meliodas' house basement. Third person POV. Clank. Clank. A shirtless Meliodas can be seen slamming a hammer down onto a burning piece of metal that is angled like a sword on top of an anvil, as right next to him on a nearby table lies a blueprint with a design of a eerily similar sword that his manga counterpart would eventually come to use in the late future. Behind Meliodas lies an entire set of armor displayed on a rack that took him a few weeks to finish due to the rarity of the materials needed for making it. Precisely, a ruby crystal was needed as he had to explore the caves in the forest and mined for the damn thing, and he couldn't find any, and it would have frustrated him to no end if it wasn't for Meliscula's soothing techniques. Eventually, after countless days as he had prepared himself some provisions knowing that he was going to be gone for a while along with some miasma bottles for Meliscula to drink from, he would go on to find a bundle of various crystals as he openly expressed his joy as his efforts paid off. Speaking of Meliscula, it took some intense convincing from Meliodas for her to get off his neck as he decided to allow her to do so only if he went outside his house, and when she nodded it, although seemingly in a reluctantly way, which surprised him as he didn't expect her to be this intelligent already. It took him 4 weeks to convince her as she would tighten the hold on his neck each time he tried to softly grab her off his neck. After getting back to his house, Meliodas decided to teach her how to manipulate her darkness as he remembered that her manga counterpart had this power as well, and her process to attain this was at a quick rate. Immediately after gaining it, Meliscula then wrapped around Meliodas's neck, and before he could scold her, she then manipulated her body as parts of it stretched down towards his chest in the form of a white cape, with the inside being filled with nothing but darkness, with some of it slipping out into the open. This gave him an idea because it reminded him of something from his past life, and he rewarded her with headpats and some miasma for her to drink. So since then, aside from training for dual wielding, he has been exploring and of course finding some souls for Meliscula to absorb. and going into his basement to make some blueprints for new gear while preparing his forge for preheating just when he grabbed a hammer and started working. Getting out of his thoughts, Meliodas wipes some sweat off his head as he places the burning piece of metal into the forge to harden the material placed on it. While waiting, he decides to take a look at his newly crafted outfit. The armor plate is a dark purple with silver mixed into the color of the plating. The leggings are dark gray in color and the boots look normal, but they are made out of a rare material that is similar to diamond. Man, that took forever to do, but my efforts will pay off. Meliodas expresses his exhaustiveness while waiting for the forge to correctly meld the materials together so he can cool it down afterwards. After that is done, Meliodas then collapses onto a nearby chair, deciding to rest for a while his new creation cools down before he can engrave it with his magic. I wonder what Meliscula is up to. Meliodas then grabs a nearby towel to wipe out all the sweat and dirt oil off his body while making his way towards the large bucket which is directly beside the table with the blueprint on it. Looking over the blueprint again, Meliodas makes some observations to see if he did everything correctly, and seeing that it is all done exactly the way it's supposed to be done, he decides to take a nap onto a nearby chair as he hasn't slept in days because he was focused on creating this weapon. Meanwhile, with Meliscula, she can be seen flowing in a large pool filled with miasma much larger than the one she hatched, and considering that it is a reward from Meliodas while thinking of the memories she received from her mother's soul and how she met him. She is grateful to have him in her life as she didn't know what would happen if she didn't meet him. Maybe she would become some self-centered B******H who would more than likely try to kill off her future mate and darling. She will ensure that something like that does not happen. Meliscula then closes her eyes, continuing to absorb the miasma while thinking of Meliodas. A few hours later. Meliodas Pav. Opening my eyes since it's been around 4 days since I came into the basement. After this, I'm taking a shower cause I'm stunk with sweat and dirt and it's hot in here. Getting off the chair, I head towards what might be one of my greatest creations, and I made sure that it could rival Godsbane once I was finished. It is a curved short sword with my demon mark tattoo emblem on the hilt, and it also has 5 holes along the middle of the sharp blade, and 5 half-moon holes along the other side of the blade. The weapon is also split into 2 different colors, the sharp part is silver and the opposite is a dark red moss. Say hello to Lostbane new and improved, unlike the one my counterpart used, instead of the first clone having half my power. It will have around 80% of my power, and it can create up to 8 clones of myself. The other clones, like the original Lostbane, will also only retain a fraction of my power. The clones having 80% of my power is divided among each clone that is created. And of course, they can all use full counter along the way, making my potential enemies think twice before fighting against me. Putting the weapon on a nearby table next to the armor rack, I head upstairs to my room while grabbing some casual clothing before taking a shower. 15 minutes later. Third person Pav. Once Meliodas is done showering, after putting on some casual clothing, he then heads back down into the basement, not noticing that Meliscula is silently following behind while quietly slithering her way, curious about what's in the basement, as this is the only place in the house where she's never visited. Meliodas then stops in the front of armor rack while looking at it with an unreadable expression before taking off his shirt, causing Meliscula, who is watching in the darkness, to have a mind-blown expression on her snake-like face. Pulling the armor torso off the rack, Meliodas then begins to put it on as he immediately snaps his fingers, making the leggings and boots switch places with the casual clothing. Now all it needs is one more thing before I can go visit my father's kingdom, mutters Meliodas, who wonders what could be the missing piece to this, not noticing Meliscula slithering her way towards him down the stairs as she silently leaps her way onto Meliodas' neck, catching him off guard. Before he could do anything, Meliscula makes her body change into a white scarf that has a cape that goes down to Meliodas' waistline, which makes the outfit much more imposing than it already was. Contributing, Meliodas puts the final touch into making this outfit look intimidating by activating his demon mark, making the outfit in his eyes officially complete. Thank you, Meliscula, but sneak up behind me again and there will be disastrous consequences if you decide to do something like this again. Scolds Meliodas as he then proceeds to give her a little glare, which causes her to meekly look down in slight guilt. On the other hand, now we can visit my father's kingdom. After all, it's been 60 years since I last seen them. Meliodas then quickly sprints his way towards the stairs before grabbing Lostbane, and he puts it in a new crafted scabbard before manifesting his wings. After grabbing Godsbane and opening and closing the front door, Meliodas then goes airborne as he glides through the air at a fast pace, heading towards the direction where his father's kingdom is located. Alright, another chapter is finished. I plan to release the next chapter sometime by next Tuesday, as I am currently working on my Dragon Ball fanfic. Dragon Lord 04 creators, thoughts? 20 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 11. Visiting 2/5. Location: Kingdom of the Demon King. Throne room. Demon King Pav. It has been around from what I presume about 60 years since my son's departure for what he calls training, and I allowed it much to the disapproval of my wife and Chandler, who seemed to grow attached to him since taking him in as his pupil. Although I was reluctant to send something to keep an eye on him since he has yet to know the true extent of his abilities. Before Meliodas left, I decided to forbid Chandler from teaching him full counter, magical half, and to just say it was for another time because he was not ready for it. Yet, because of my own ambitions, I hardly spent time with him, and the only people he truly cares about is his mother Olivia and Chandler, despite the emotionless demeanor he had back then, which is very fitting for the next Demon King. Who knows what kind of changes he went through since then? Only time will tell. Third person Pav. Meliodas, who is donning his new outfit, can be seen flying at a rapid pace while thinking of the changes that could have happened during his time away from his father's kingdom. I wonder what dear old dad has been up to ever since I left. Seeing the walls of the kingdom in the far distance, he slows down his flight to a minimum as he carefully lands near the entrance. Landing in front of the entrance, not really wanting to go through the process of getting in a typical fashion, so he manifests his flaming aura of darkness, which seems to work as the guards are visibly sweating with fear and nervousness. Meliodas then slowly walks past them, not even giving a glance to their facial expressions while heading into the streets, and he sees that not much has changed since his departure. Feeling Meliscula slightly move, Meliodas soothes her, knowing that she too was slightly intimidated by his aura since he scolded her not too long ago back at his home in the Crimson Forest around several hundred miles away. It's all right, I'm not mad at you anymore. Just be careful if you're going to sneak up on me, since I barely had any sleep since I was too busy with the creation of Lostbane and this outfit that I'm wearing right now. Meliodas calms her down, making it look like he is scratching his white scarf since it is Meliscula's disguise. Walking through the streets, Meliodas takes in the sights of the structures around him, not noticing something bumping into him, although he is not affected in the slightest. But on the other hand, oof. The individual who bumped into him falls harshly on their ass, with Meliodas looking down to see who exactly bumped into him, and when he sees who it is, he gets a sense of deja vu. The figure who collided into him is now on the concrete floor in slight pain due to how hard they bumped into him, and it was almost like hitting a brick wall. Meliodas instantly recognizes the figure, remembering the memories from his past life. Although a lot younger and shorter than what was revealed in both the manga and anime. Having spiky short orange hair which adds on to their tomboyish look, and while wearing a natural dress, the figure is revealed to be Derriere, despite the fact that she's not yet what she'll turn out to be in the future, for certain events have not yet come to pass. Damn, that hurt. She mutters while turning to glare to whoever caused her to be in this situation, but stops as soon as she sees Meliodas giving her a look of indifference, and she couldn't help but feel a bit nervous seeing this person in front of her. Are you all right? Asks Meliodas while offering his hand to help her off the ground, catching Derriere a bit off guard, not expecting for something like this to happen. Why yeah. She answers with a bit of embarrassment while grabbing his hand to help her off the ground, and she checks herself to ensure that she is not injured in any way. Ignoring Meliscula's grip on his neck tightening to a high degree, are you out here alone by any chance? Meliodas couldn't help but ask, seeing that he is meeting a future commandment, but as a child, although he knows that demons age differently compared to humans, seeing that he is still a teenager despite the fact that he is around 67 years old. So he believes that in human terms, she would be around 10 years old, but is actually possibly in her late 20s. And no, I actually came with my sister. She answers with a tone filled with slight nervousness, seeing Meliodas's expression, which adds on to his intimidating appearance. So where is she? You didn't come out here all alone, did you? Meliodas, while in the process of crossing his arms, questions, and he got his answer when he saw her cheeks blush a bit as she dons a guilty expression. Before Derriere could answer his question, they hear someone yell, "Derriere, there you are." As they both look to see someone who looks very similar to her but is much more mature, and her demon mark is shaped like a crescent on her right eye and a small mark under her left eye, and she, like Derriere, is also wearing a light-colored dress. Not having enough time to respond, Derriere is then hugged tightly by her older sister, who currently has an expression of relief mixed with worry, but mostly relief, seeing that she is all right. Derriere, while feeling guilty and embarrassed at the same time, begins to hug her back, much to Meliodas's slight amusement at the situation, although he hides it very well. Geez, little sis, why would you sneak off like that? I know that you are curious, but I didn't think you were that rebellious enough to do something like that. Lightly scolding her sister, she then turns around to see Meliodas standing behind her, as her eyes then widen in recognition while quickly kneeling to her knees, much to Derriere's shock and confusion. I strictly apologize for whatever offenses my sister may have committed to you, Prince Meliodas. But please allow me to take her place in her punishment for whatever reason, as she is still too young to receive severe punies. Oof. lightly chopping her head in a comedic fashion much to Derrieri's surprise. Sigh, I'm not even going to do anything as it was an accident, so don't worry about any punishment. Just be sure to take better care of your sister. While caught off guard at first, he waves his hand to show that there is no problem with what occurred a few moments prior. He then walks past her and Derrieri not noticing the looks he is receiving from the two of them, but both have different meanings. One filled with increased respect for sparing her sister from any sort of punishment, and the other filled with something that they don't quite understand, but they'll find out what it means someday. A couple minutes later. Meliodas, who finally got Meliscula to stop strangling his neck when he interacted with the sisters, can be seen sitting in a chair in what seems to be a bar. The reason being is that he wants to find out if his manga counterpart's high alcohol tolerance came from either excessively drinking the demon realm's version of alcohol or if he was born with such resistance to such a thing. Making some currency appear out of thin air with his magic, he throws some coins at the bartender, who catches them as Meliodas orders a strong alcoholic drink just so he can test out which theory is true. I should spend my time wisely before going to the palace, since I hardly spent time out here when I was still living here. Meliodas, while waiting, manifests a bit of his aura, which causes the other demons who wanted to properly welcome him back off away from him, seeing that he is too strong for them, especially when they see the two swords on his back. A few minutes passed and the bartender delivers his drink as he quickly downs it, not even taking a second to register the burning sensation on his throat, proving that the alcohol in the demon realm is much more potent when compared to the beverages in Britannia from what he's seen from the manga from his past life. Now I know how my manga counterpart has such tolerance to the alcohol in Britannia. Meliodas, already feeling a bit drunk since the alcohol he drank was very strong since it was the most expensive. A few hours later. After drinking more beverages, Meliodas can be seen passed out drunk in a hotel room with Meliscula laying next to him while still disguised as a scarf, with an amused expression on her face, remembering Meliodas drinking the bar's entire stock and everyone's look of astonishment. She hopes to drink along with him one day, and then she succumbs to her dreams. Alright, chapter finally done, and Meliodas got to meet someone important as well. Next chapter will possibly be released on Sunday, since I plan to release more chapters on my Dragon Ball fanfic for the next few days. This chapter can also be considered slice of life-ish before Meliodas can meet his parents for the first time in over 60 years. Dragon Lord 04 creators, thoughts? 19 comments, 0 vote. Question. Should I make side chapters, and if your answer is yes, then I can further develop the various immersion changes in Britannia itself from the events that will differ from canon itself, so I can provide better details and explanations in case I include something into the story that throws you all off. Please answer wisely. Answers in the comments will also count. Yes. No. N. Side chapters will be slightly shorter than the average chapter that is released. Edited. There will not be a bundle of them, just very important information and elements that will be crucial to the story. If yes, then place your ideas in the comments. Dragon Lord 04 creators, thoughts? 43 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 12. Visiting 3/5. A few hours later. Arranged by G.H. Meliodas wakes up with an immense headache, showing that he is going through a hangover. Damn, guess I had too much to drink last night. Good thing that I remember everything, though. It's great to know that I'm not that type of drunk who just sprouts everything. Although I do kinda feel bad for destroying their stocks, and I might have killed some lower demons along the way, but who gives a damn around here anyway? Meliodas recalls the events of last night with a contemplated expression, not noticing Meliscula beginning to wake up herself. Meliodas, who can barely stand, attempts some magic to get rid of the hangover by touching the middle of his forehead before turning off his demon mark as he presses his fingers inward. Feeling the effects, the hangover slowly begins to recede, much to his relief. That'll be the last time I drink alcohol from this realm for a while. Silently mutters Meliodas, not caring as Meliscula carefully wraps herself around his neck, knowing that Meliodas is currently still recovering from his hangover. Grabbing his weapons, which were scattered on the hotel room floor, and putting them back in their respective scabbards, Meliodas then heads out of the room with little to no care about the destruction he caused the previous night. Heading down to the main area in the hotel, Meliodas then quickly activates his demon mark while walking up to the hotel manager, who he practically traumatized the night before with his menacing acts of cruelty, as he can be seen with a missing eye along with a missing leg, which are very slowly regenerating. The manager, who looks like a human wearing a suit with the exception of a dark purple eye with his demon mark being on his left arm, sees Meliodas approaching, and he visibly shakes in terror, remembering the torture he put him through after his arrogance made him underestimate Meliodas' nature since he was under the influence of alcohol. Before he could ask what he was going to do, a bag filled with coins hits him straight in the face, which knocks him out cold. All the while Meliodas can be seen leaving the establishment with a barely satisfied look in his eyes, knowing that the manager got what was coming to him. Dash 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 dash. After leaving the hotel, Meliodas then begins to head towards the palace as every demon that walks in his path move out of the way knowing that he isn't to be messed with, else several lower demons had to clean up the massacre he caused from his drunken state. While this is happening, he then begins to reminisce about the times he spent with his mother as his father was absent most of the time due to his duties as the Demon King. Flashback. 60 years ago. 3 weeks before Meliodas' departure to the Crimson Forest. A younger Meliodas can be seen walking exhaustively through the royal halls after another harsh day of training from Chandler, who would dote on him from time to time during his lessons. At first, it irritated him to no end, but eventually, he got to use to his mentor's over-the-top encouragement during his training, since he's essentially become a sort of father figure to him, much more than his actual father, though he didn't say anything about it out loud. Before he could go to his room, he instinctively turns around and sees his mother standing behind as she looks at him with a motherly smile, something that he'll never forget despite his seemingly emotionless demeanor, but he really was looking forward to when his mother would come back from her endeavors with the other clans in the human realm, since they had to send a representative of each clan to said realm to follow through the treaty they have with one another. "Come here, my little prince, let me take care of you," she says, much to his mild embarrassment, and before he could protest, he is already being dragged against his will and his expression just becomes, really, in a chibi fashion as his mother takes him to the bathroom and she then turns on the shower while preparing the soap. A couple minutes later, Meliodas, who is wearing noble clothing fitting for a prince such as himself, walks out of the bathroom with an unnoticeable expression, with his mother walking behind him with a pleasant aura of satisfaction. Since she hardly had any time to spend with her son, as she found it quite fun to embarrass him while in the bath, through she could tell that later on that he'll be an outright looker for some ladies when he gets older. "Come on, Melly-chan, I've already ordered the cooks to make us some dinner through. Sadly your father won't be attending again for reasons I don't yet quite understand, but as long as I have you there, it'll be alright." After Olivia said that, for a brief moment, her expression becomes one of anger before brushing it off with a smile, since she doesn't want Meliodas to see her like this. Seeing her expression, Meliodas decides to ignore it, knowing that his father would rather do his duties as king rather than spend time with his family. If this is what it means to be a king, then I don't want to be king if it means to abandon those who need it the most. Meliodas then sits on a chair and places his elbows onto the table with a bored look on his face while waiting for the food to be finished, as his mother sits on one near him. Dash 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 dash. Several minutes later, a bell rings in the diner room as several cooks then come out from the royal kitchen with multiple plates covered with a metal container on top as they begin to place them in front of Olivia and Meliodas. Then they unlatch the lids from the plate, and what is revealed can make even the best cooks in a certain kingdom in the human realm jealous. Meliodas unconsciously begins to salivate a bit from the sight of the well-cooked food, much to his mother's amusement, as the cooks then bow since they are serving food to their majesties before leaving back to the kitchen, leaving the two to stare at their meals. After eating the meal, Meliodas in a mannerly fashion begins to clean himself of any leftovers before walking off to do his own business, and right after the Demon King then appears in the room, barely missing the dinner. "Why won't you spend time with us? And I don't want to hear another excuse out of you. You already missed any chance of spending time with your own son. And I refuse to satisfy your lust any longer unless you give a proper explanation." Olivia's demon mark begins to manifest, which is similar to Meliodas, but it is over her left eye as she glares at the Demon King, despite the fact that he could easily overpower her in battle, but not to the extent of her wrath upon him. Not willing to give an answer to her questions, and before he could move to eat his meal, slap. Though it didn't affect him in the slightest, Olivia stomps her way out of the room, leaving the Demon King alone in the diner room contemplating about his actions. dash 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 dash. Meliodas can be seen in his room doing push-ups with different clothing from the one he wore from eating dinner with his mother, ignoring the palace shaking from just her power alone. Probably another disagreement with father. I don't blame her for the way she's acting right now. Continuing his push-ups, although he just took a shower, he won't mind taking another one without his mother embarrassing him. Turns out that his mother is actually much more powerful than even his mentor in just sheer power alone, but she's not a warrior like he is, so it balances out. I have to be strong enough to protect those I hold dear to myself, even if it means putting myself through hell to do so. I will be better than what my counterpart was ever capable of. Determined, Meliodas continues to push himself to his limits, refusing to know the inevitable fate that'll await him in the future. Dash 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 dash. Present time. Snapping himself out of the memory he was presumably thinking about, Meliodas sees that he is already near the palace where he made so many fond memories in. Well, Mother, Master Chandler, I have returned. Returned to finish what I have started when I left, to become stronger. Meliodas then begins to comfort Meliscula, who then begins to purr a bit from the attention she's getting. It is time for Meliodas to finally obtain the other half of full counter while at the same time spending time with his mother. Dash 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 dash. Speaking of his mother, she is currently sitting on her throne, which is beside the Demon King's, with a bored expression on her face, since it has been around 60 years since her son departed on her husband's request, much to her disapproval, and she knows that she can't defy him because his power vastly overpowers her own, since he is the creator of the demon clan and she was his very first creation. Who knows what her son has been up to the past 60 years? Alright, decided to release a chapter earlier than expected, but I hope you all find it alright. And I decided to try my hand at inputting flashbacks for the first time. Next chapter should be released by next Thursday. Olivia PL, Demon Mark, 182,000. Dragonlord 04 creators, thoughts. 38 comments, 0 vote. Pissed. Download the app for additional rewards. More events, more perks. Winning you more free perks. Download now. Dragonlord 04. Download app now. Spader 13, visiting 4/5. Meliodas can be seen walking towards the gates with a neutral expression, noticing that not much has changed since he left. Even the guards who were personally ordered by his father to bring him to train under Chandler all those years ago are still there guarding the front gate. Seems that they got demoted from the looks of it. I don't want to know what they did to put them in this position anyway. Making his presence known as the two guards then begin to raise their weapons at the potential intruder, but seeing who it is, they couldn't help but widen their eyes in shock, seeing Meliodas for the first time in several decades. P. Prink CEM Meliodas. Ignoring their fear and awe, Meliodas just walks past them, not even sparing a glance in which inertly freezes them in place, already realizing that his power is immense, already placing him among the strongest demons within the demon realm despite being so young. Meliscula, I may advise you to maintain your utmost behavior and try to restrain yourself from strangling me in front of my mother, as she can be very protective of me. Feeling the disguised snake nod, he unnoticeably smiles before returning to a stern expression, not knowing how his mother will react, and as much as he's not willing to admit it, he missed her greatly. After walking a great flight of stairs, he stops once he's right in front of a large door leading to the entryway into the palace, where he can sense his mother's presence right on the other side, causing him to contemplate his next actions. Before he could open the door, it opens harshly as he is now standing face to face with his mother, who slightly looks up at him since he is now taller than her by 4 inches. Dash 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 dash. Taking the appearance of her nearly full-grown son, Olivia couldn't help but tear up slightly due to his absence, since he was basically the only truly good thing she got from her neglectful husband. If only I was younger. Only then would I truly fall in love with someone like Meliodas. Maybe in another life I might. Without giving time for Meliodas to respond, she crashes into his arms, giving him a hug filled with love and care, catching him off guard. When was the last time I've ever been hugged like this? Even from the memories he still maintains from his previous life, as some have already been forgotten due to the time he spent during the 60 years of living in the Crimson Forest. He recuperates the hug with an equal amount of love and comfort. It's nice to see you again, mother. Meliodas closes his eyes, fully taking in the comfort he's receiving from this reunion before opening them, and the atmosphere all of a sudden gets tense and he couldn't help but flinch a bit seeing his father standing there in the distance looking at him with an expression of indifference. Noticing something wrong, Olivia looks to see Meliodas looking over her shoulder as she turns around to see her husband staring him down, and she couldn't help but sigh a bit in frustration. Can't you just not show up unexpectedly since you're so focused on making sure the treaty with the goddess clan is still in effect when you realize that'll just cause suspicion? It's not like you even give a damn about our precious son, unlike me. Seeing the tension in the room, Meliodas stands awkwardly, not knowing what to do in this type of situation. Before Olivia could rant any further, Meliodas walks past her as he then kneels down in front of the Demon King like a loyal soldier despite his unwillingness to do so, but nonetheless this is still his father. I have returned and acquired what I was striving for the past decades. And I would like to request for your permission to learn full counter from Master Chandler. Says Meliodas with slightly gritted teeth, knowing that he is still not strong enough when compared to his father. After some thought about his request, granted. He answers with a neutral voice and then proceeds to head off into a direction to awaken a certain master swordsman since he forced him to hibernate centuries ago, since he plans to use him for another potential heir in the near future. Getting up from his kneeling position, Meliodas didn't care too much about his nonchalant attitude concerning him, unlike his mother who is currently on the brink of succumbing to her resentment towards her husband as she looks down on her stomach while placing her hand on it, which calms her down. Confused about this predicament, mother, are you? Before he could finish his sentence. Yes, you're going to be a big brother soon, Meli-chan. Forgetting about what happened moments prior, Olivia exclaims with childlike excitement. Wait. Me. As a big brother? Pointing to himself, Meliodas couldn't help but ask, and she nods her head very quickly. Although it was difficult for me to admit since I didn't expect to get pregnant, but seeing Meliodas act like this makes my pregnancy feel like it's worth something, knowing that my next child will have him as someone to look up to. She shakes her head to prevent any dark thoughts from surfacing before Meliodas could notice from her facial expressions. Sat, Meli-chan. When are you going to introduce your companion to me? Pointing to his scarf, Olivia senses Meliskilla's presence, although very faint but not enough to hide from her presence. So this is the legendary women's intuition, huh? And it seems that demons while pregnant take much longer periods than that of humans. Well, who cares, but it seems that Zeldris will be born soon. His eyes slightly widen, though they are not noticeable to those who haven't known him for a long time. Oh, I almost forgot, you can reveal yourself, don't worry, she won't harm you, I swear. After his statement, his scarf begins to darken a bit in texture and her features make themselves known to those who are present. Oh, it seems you found yourself a rare type of species, Meli-chan. Olivia reveals a fact much to his surprise, not knowing that despite having memories of the human he once was, realizing that Meliskilla's kind was considered a rare species in the demon realm. To explain in short terms, your companion is known as a Vescoid. Vesquioids are considered very rare due to being endangered as a result of their habitats being destroyed due to completion from other predators, and causes them to retreat into large pools of miasma. And there is a rumor that if a Vescoid were to mark you, they'll eventually obtain a form similar to us once they hit a certain age. Meliodas tilts and scratches his head due to the amount of information he just received. And I made up the name of Meliskilla's species as I don't want to just refer her kind as snake-like demons. So what is her name? She continues on with a smile, since it's amusing to see such emotion from Meliodas since he was so determined to train to even focus on those aspects during his childhood. Despite the efforts she made in the past, he wouldn't listen to her because of his father, and it was almost like he was grooming him to be his next vessel instead of heir. Her name is Meliskilla. Answers Meliodas as he comforts Meliskilla to calm her down, since his mother is very powerful in her own right and her aura is leaking out a bit due to her being on the verge of unleashing her fury upon his father. Olivia nods at the name, and before she could ask for what he did during those 60 years. How's Master Chandler doing? He asks since he has to learn the magical counterpart of full counter, which is one of the main reasons as to why he's here now, because he did what was told of him before he left his father's kingdom 6 decades ago. He's fine, although he misses you almost as much as I did during your absence. She answers, remembering the praises he would often give to her son after their training sessions were finished for the day. Is he still in his training quarters by any chance? Meliodas asks since he's finally ready to take the training routine of acquiring the technique that made his manga counterpart exceptionally deadly in battle, and that is not involving revenge counter or counter vanish, since they too are also devastating techniques in their own right. Yes. Is that why you've returned after all these years? Giving a smile that doesn't match her eyes, Meliodas along with Meliscula couldn't help but shiver a bit under her gaze. No, even though that's one of the reasons. I also came back to see you and Master Chandler again just to catch up on what has been going on since I left. Quickly stating his answer in hopes of not having to suffer the ire of her wrath. Luckily for him, she calms her gaze down accepting his answer while he very quietly lets out a breath of relief before heading towards where Chandler is supposedly present at the moment. I need to prepare myself before going in there since he can be overreactive when it comes to situations involving me. Meliodas hugs his mother before heading off down the royal hallway to Chandler's quarters while Meliscula puts her disguise back on as she lays around his neck. Alright, another chapter done and on the brink of midnight as well. Next chapter will most likely be released next Tuesday since the word count is slowly increasing with each chapter. The MC will meet Chandler for his next step into completing full counter. Dragonlord 04 creators, thoughts? 44 comments 0 vote. Chapter 14, visiting 5/5. And, from now on with each chapter that deals with the ending of an arc or a slice of life type of arc. They'll be far longer than a normal chapter. And there is a shocking surprise near the end which was put for the reason for me not remembering every detail from the original story. Dash 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 dash. Moments after leaving Meliodas and Olivia. The Demon King can be seen walking down a dark hallway that leads into a basement filled with various books and incantations that also include curses as he sits down on a chair while summoning a scripture filled with 10 symbols that correlate to in small extension to his own power. Demon King Pav. Seems that Meliodas has gotten spectacularly stronger and in a short amount of time at that when compared to most other high-class demons. There is already signs of a war breaking out between my clan and the goddesses since they fear the might of the demon race. And my wife has already gotten suspicious of my actions which was due to me sealing half of her power so she wouldn't use that, since at the time, her power was almost on par with my own when using it and she almost killed who was once my most trusted retainer but I stopped her from doing so and punished him by separating his soul into two. And it's more than likely that Meliodas will inherit that power later down the line. I'll figure out something to suppress it when the situation calls for it but it may not work considering his progress, loyalty to his mother and Chandler. I will need an elite force of demons that'll handle the operations in case a war erupts out of our hands and the supreme deity is already forming an elite group of warriors of her own. And the fairies also have something special hidden that involves their sacred tree but they didn't disclose its description to anyone. Fortunately enough, I've already found my first candidate to bestow upon them a source of power yet at the same time a curse and it gives them a forceful sense of loyalty to me even if they refuse to do so in the past and they won't notice it since it won't affect their personality in any way possible. With the next heir soon arriving, it's time for to awaken Cusick so he can train them in case if Meliodas were to betray us but I'll ensure that doesn't happen with this commandment that I'll place upon him when I get the chance to. Third person Pav. The demon while sacrificing around half of his power uses his abilities on the scripture to create 10 dark orbs with each possessing a symbol representing a specific commandment and he then places all but one in containers sealing them with a spell since their purpose is for later on. He then approaches a hidden chamber within the basement as he places his hand onto a concealed space and a door begins to slowly open up revealing a dark ominous stairway that leads down to a specific place. Walking down the steps at a steady pace, once at the designated location, the Demon King then waves his hand dispelling an illusion that he casted himself a few thousand years ago which was a few decades after he created the demon realm. Once the illusion is fully disabled, he then goes into the room and what is inside is revealed to be a seal with a mark that displays 2 black arrows along with its size being enough to fit an entire person. It is almost time for thou to serve your purpose for when my next potential heir is born for you shall be released to fulfill your duty of being their master for the rest of your existence. I will not repeat this once more. The Demon King then uses a spell to solidify his statement to ensure when Cusick is released from his seal, he'll have to follow his orders. Once he is done with what he came down here to do, he casts the illusion back up and begins to head up the stairway with a commandment floating above his hand as he hides it with a cloaking spell. Dash 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 dash. Chandler's quarters. Sir Meliodas. Exclaims Chandler as he in a fake manner cries with tears filled with immense joy at the sight of his student while launching himself at him with the intent to hug him. Meliodas simply sidesteps to the right, causing Chandler to crash into a barrel much to his slight amusement, and he felt Meliodas wiggle around his neck almost like she is laughing at his mentor's current state of position, making him sigh in nostalgia. It is also great to see you once more, Master Chandler, but this isn't the only reason why I came back. Walking up to where his mentor is currently, he helps him gather his bearings by grabbing his foot, and he then throws him over his shoulder where he lands perfectly on his feet. I see. Chandler begins soothing his beard, changing to a serious tone, making it seem like his earlier outburst never happened, and he summons his staff. So you've actually learned it, Sir Meliodas? Asks Chandler with a neutral tone, but on the inside, he is immensely proud because of the gear he is currently wearing, showing his efforts. Yes, I've managed to learn half of what full counter truly is when it comes to physical attacks, so I'm here to request that you teach me the magical proportion of it. Meliodas answers with the same tone while waiting for what his answer is. You have already proven that you are ready, so you'll have to do this without your equipment on, as this is just more than acquiring what most would call full counter. You have to be more attuned with your magic, much like you already are with your physical aspects. I want you to remember this at heart for when you encounter obstacles that'll be detrimental to your emotions at some point in the future. Chandler then continues what his wise mind can fathom for his student. If you ever become lost in the darkness, always remember that there will be someone out there who will guide you out of that void into following where your true purpose lies. Only then will you find where your purpose truly lies, as you can never fabricate false truths to your own heart. Chandler finishes off, which makes Meliodas think deep in thought. I don't know what it means to be lost in the darkness, but something tells me that one day I'll find out regrettably of what those words mean. Meliodas finishes off his thoughts as he places his two scabbards containing Godsbane and Lostbane inside his perfect storage before snapping his fingers, causing the sphere-looking dome to disappear, much to Chandler's whistle of approval of this ability. All right, Meliodas, don't worry, I'll be all right. Just be sure to get to my mother safely. And be sure not to piss her off. Softly whispers Meliodas, and Meliodas then begins to slither down his body, causing some discomfort to his body in an unknown fashion before going out the door to where his mother is currently present. Seems that you have gained yourself a interesting companion, Sir Meliodas, and she's already on the brink of evolving. Chandler acknowledges Meliodas' existence since she revealed herself in his presence. Yeah, I found her during my time in the Crimson Forest, and ever since she hatched, she's been very attached to me, which is making me suspect that there is more to what her recent actions are, since I put her mother's very soul into her after she passed on from this world. And it seems that she gains more intelligence with each year that goes by, and I had my fair share of intelligent monsters. Meliodas takes off his gauntlets along with his chest plate, revealing a black tank top that shows off the intense density of his lean but not too bulky muscles. Meliodas then begins to stretch out his muscles out by extending both his arms by rotating them, since this is mostly likely a sparring match, as he remembers the very few matches he had against his mentor, and they were considered torture for him, because if it weren't for the use of his darkness, which included stitching body parts together, he would have been dead a long time ago. Quickly placing the rest of his gear in perfect storage, he grabs two wooden swords and goes into a stance with his knees slightly bended, along with his arms raised up with one over his shoulder and another below his head. Enchant Hellblaze. Meliodas mutters, and the wooden swords become covered in black flames, and the room temperature then begins to dampen down, making it cold enough to see someone's breath. Mortis Liquire. And suddenly several small pieces of sharp icicles filled with darkness appear behind Meliodas, showing that he never slacked off during his 60-year departure. Before Chandler could acknowledge his impressive showcase of his abilities, Meliodas then suddenly appears behind him with an attack ready to launch, but it is quickly blocked by his staff with no sense of effort. Slash. Slash. Not letting up, Meliodas unleashes a barrage of attacks with his wooden swords, and the flames are having little effect on his staff. Seeing this, Meliodas then mentally commands the ice he summoned to begin its assault onto his mentor. Tilting his head to the side, Chandler quickly evades the ice attacks while Meliodas bends over backwards, dodging the sharp icicles he summoned using his dark ice manipulation ability that he gained from meditating in a cold environment with little to no clothing while living in the Crimson Forest. Before he could move, he is then hit in the gut by Chandler's staff, which launches him away. While in the air, Meliodas quickly redirects himself by landing on the wall with his feet implanted, and he then propels himself towards Chandler at rapid speeds as he then prepares another attack with his wooden swords. The black flames on his swords begin to extend outward, expanding their attack range, and Chandler hardly looks phased at all, since Meliodas may be strong currently, but he still lacks the proper experience needed in a serious battle against an opponent who is not an animal. Right before Meliodas could land his attack, he suddenly realizes that he made a grievous mistake, and Chandler begins to smirk a bit seeing his expression. Full counter. Swiping his staff, Meliodas's attack is reflected back onto him with double the impact of what was intended should he have landed the attack successfully, and he spills out blood and lands into the wall harshly while groaning in the process due to the impact. You left yourself open there. I taught you better than this, but considering you believed that you could defeat me with the strength that you currently possess. Trust me when I say this, Sir Meliodas, but I've hardly used any sort of my true power against you. Chandler throws out the truth of the gap between their power. You need to dig deep within yourself. What makes you want to strive for improvement? Why should you need to obtain this ability if you have yet properly attuned your own magical power? Chandler voices out to Meliodas, who seems to be knocked out, but he's completely wrong as his body begins to twitch. Meliodas's mindscape. His mentor's words are heard in his head and he somehow finds himself in dark black void filled with nothing but emptiness. Where am I? Meliodas begins to walk around in this seemingly endless void with no end in sight. So you have forgotten who you once were, considering that you and I were once the same person, but it seems that his original soul merged with our own, which resulted in us gradually losing the memories of what made us who we once were. A voice is suddenly heard which Meliodas couldn't help but find it similar, like he knows what he is talking but can't grasp onto what it is. Then out of the darkness, an average-looking teen with a skinny build along with some clothing that confuses Meliodas, since this doesn't look like the clothing he would wear often. This is none other than Henry Charles, who is his past incarnation. My name is Henry, by the way, just so you don't forget. And I would say it's an honor to meet one of my favorite anime characters, but at the same time it's technically weird considering that I'm talking to myself. But to explain in short terms, I'm all that's left of our original geeky personality, considering the way you talk and think currently is far different than it was a few years after we were reborn. I do not want to be reminded of how much of a fool I once was, but I'll let it slide since I was a child at the time. Meliodas quickly says before asking, and what did you mean by his original soul merging with my own? Looking up slightly at the teen for an explanation, Henry sighs before explaining. Basically, your soul is combining with the soul of the original Meliodas, who we know becomes sadistic and ruthless during the holy war between the demon clan and the goddess clan, but changes his ways after meeting the love of his life, making him kind-hearted and somewhat perverted. And the merging process is slowly wiping away my existence as a result, since I'm all what's left of your subconscious. He lifts his shirt sleeve up to show that there are spots on his skin starting to fade away. Oddly enough, I'm not even complaining as much as I used to back on Earth, but on the other hand, I'm here to let you move on from what's left of me since you need to become stronger. Henry then places his hand onto Meliodas's shoulder, much to his confusion. Even if you completely lose your memories from our life beforehand, you'll make much better ones with the ones who truly care about your well-being. Henry then begins to glow slightly transparent, showing that it's almost time for him to go. Seems that it's almost time, huh? Well, good luck to you, other me, or should I say Meliodas. And please don't forget the knowledge I bestowed upon you since our rebirth, as it is the only thing that'll remain intact and it will help you on your path. Henry then begins to fade away out of existence with a closed-eyed smile on his face, causing Meliodas to feel complicated since he basically witnessed himself die. Immediately afterwards, Meliodas begins to feel his body burning and he collapses to his knees while gritting his teeth, not noticing that his aura is beginning to expand outward and its appearance is much more potent than before, and he slowly wakes up. Reality. What seemed like a couple minutes was actually a few seconds. Chandler watches Meliodas's body twitch violently in a curious manner. He widens his eyes in shock while quickly dodging an object which turned out to be one of his wooden swords that was infused with darkness, and it embeds itself into the wall. Interesting. Seems I'll have to get a bit serious now, even if it's considered sparring. He watches Meliodas slowly get out of the wall with his hair covering his eyes and the room goes quiet. Pow. Somehow at a quick burst of speed, Meliodas catches Chandler off guard by kicking his head, which staggers him, and not before enduring several more blows to his rib and abdomen that land with an expert level of precision. Meliodas then looks up at Chandler and smirks, since it is now revealed that his demon mark is now larger than before and it manages to go over his eye to the center of his head. Seems that your advice worked after all, Teach. Now why don't we let ourselves loose for a while? Meliodas quickly moves away from Chandler, creating a distance between them while grabbing the wooden sword that's embedded into the wall. I think I have an idea on how your full counter works now. And it's so much easier to do than the other half, which was a hell of an effort to do. Meliodas at a rapid pace grabs the other sword where he was knocked out for few seconds. Interesting. It seems that you will need to learn how to control that aspect of your demon mark, Sir Meliodas, since your endura nature is starting to unveil itself, considering your laid-back attitude, which is unnatural for someone with your personality. Chandler analyzes the newly increased power of Meliodas, and if this were a different circumstance, he would bawl his eyes out in joy. No need, since I'm about to show you the results of what I've learned. Meliodas then charges towards Chandler as they then clash their weapons against one another, creating a shockwave as a result which impacts their surroundings. I have to finish this quickly before the situation gets out of hand. Chandler then swiftly appears behind Meliodas and launches one of his magical attacks. Meliodas then smiles and says, "Absolute counter." And the attack is reflected back towards Chandler with quadruple times the force intended for his attack, while greatly shocking him in the process while narrowly evading by a split second, and the entire wall is destroyed in the process, creating an explosion that is large enough to be seen throughout the kingdom. Meliodas is slightly awed at how powerful this ability is, and before he could move, he unexpectedly feels a hard impact on his head and he is knocked out cold and his demon mark slowly fades away. Dash 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 dash. Loud steps can be heard heading towards the door, and his mother, who has Meliscula around her arm, opens the door forcibly and almost breaks it off as a result, and sees the destruction from the explosion she heard not too long ago. She sees that Meliodas is knocked out and she moves her head to glare towards Chandler, who can be seen nervously sweating immensely. "Did you do this?" In a frighteningly calm voice, Olivia asks, since it was supposed to be a sparring match. "Why? Your Heinz. S.I.C.A. Pow." Chandler is then knocked out in the progress, and she begins to carry Meliodas as Meliscula begins to curl around his neck, making sure that he is all right. Chandler can seen embedded in the floor with a large bump on his head, while Olivia carries Meliodas over her shoulder to find somewhere in the palace where she can heal him. To be continued. Dang, can't believe that I wrote over 3,000 words and I'm mentally exhausted. Well, I hope it was worth the wait for you all, since this is the longest chapter I've written so far. Well, Meliodas managed to learn the magical aspect of full counter as well, unlocking more of his potential. Meliodas' second stage demon mark PL, 83,160. The next one will be a side chapter, and it will more than likely be around 1,1200 words long. Dragonlord 04 Creators, Thought. Side chapter, Origins. Narrator Pav. Earth, 2021. The Earth has been ravaged with a disease that has yet to be cured, but that didn't stop the rest of society from continuing their daily lives. Now let's go on to a specific individual in the state of Florida. There lies an apartment that looks normal on the outside, but inside lies a room filled with a collection that would be considered sacred among those obsessed with the concept of anime. From manga to posters, this individual is currently watching the latest season on 7 Deadly Sins with the Netflix app on his television that was recently released, but the animation still looked inferior to the first 3 seasons. Well, technically too, but that doesn't matter since that is not important. What's important is that this individual is none other than Henry Charles, who would later on be known as Meliodas within his next life. His appearance is average looking with a skinny build and black hair along with brown eyes. He can be considered a loner with little to no time making friends, since it was already too late for him because no one wanted to speak with him no matter how much he tried to improve himself. And the people he would talk to in school would often forget his existence the following year, and what's sad about this is that he's grown accustomed to being ignored to the point where his emotions are affected, causing him to feel less and less each year that went by. Sigh, another boring day as usual since summer break started not too long ago. Henry then pauses the episode he's watching as he decides to take a walk outside to get some fresh air. Henry would spend his days listening to some music and at times watch some TV. And on occasion, he would exercise to hopefully fill the void in his heart, since his parents are currently out doing their own thing as usual, since their jobs often take away the time they could spend with him. Walking outside, Henry breathes in the fresh air. I just hope that if reincarnation exists, please make me be reborn as one of my favorite anime characters, and I would like to have a better life than the one I'm having right now. He prays with all his heart as tears can be seen in the corner of his eyes, showing how much pain he feels inside, since it's been that way ever since he started high school. And I promise to do it right this time if I get the opportunity to do so. Ending his prayer, Henry then decides to jog for a bit to calm his nerves, because during certain times, his emotions would burst out of nowhere because his time in elementary school affected him psychologically, changing him from a very cheerful child to a child who developed severe social anxiety because the students, including the teachers, just would not leave him alone, and they had a problem with the way he acted, and it was confusing because he acted normally like everyone else. Because of this, he developed a fear of presenting in front of other people because all he could see is nothing but their soulless eyes glaring down on him like a doll. His nightmares involved going to funerals of his family members, and sometimes he would also get murdered or run over by a car, and the noises he would hear within those nightmares would cause his entire body to freeze for a couple of seconds after he wakes up. Even more, out of nowhere he would develop thoughts about things he would rather not do, and the worst part was that he visualized it with every decision that he made, causing him to go into multiple periods of depression. He doesn't know why life decided to do such a thing to him. All he wanted was to have people other than his family to talk to about his issues, but it seemed that it couldn't be possible because they would just straight up stab him in the back by abandoning him. Because of this, he developed trust issues, causing him to become from an extrovert to introvert. And Valentine's Day sucked for him. Each year ever since his first year of high school, he would see couples enjoying their time, and it just made him feel so lost inside, like his heart would ache, and he wanted to know just how it feels to fall in love. And just recently, he had to watch his family tear themselves apart because of one single lie that essentially destroyed the true meaning of what a family is supposed to be. My life really sucks, huh? Well, it's just like starting a new game where your life is decided by random, and it seems that I got the lower end of it when it comes to socializing. Maybe, just maybe, if I do get the chance to reincarnate, I'll erase all the memories from this life aside from anime, cause I don't want to experience that again. Henry continues to jog while listening to some 90s music, since that is one of his preferences, not even caring to look for any vehicles passing by as he crosses the street, and on that day it would change his life for the better. A four-wheeler comes barreling down onto the road, and it then hits poor Henry as he gets launched several feet into the air, and he lands onto the roof of a nearby vehicle, causing his body to twist with a noticeable crunch. His body is bloodied, with his arms twisted at unnatural angles, and his legs are basically severely broken with multiple fractures. His collarbone can be seen sticking out of the skin, much to the horror of some bystanders that witness the event, and they just stand there and watch, not even caring to call the ambulance because of the disease that's ravaging in the world. Guess. ILLN never EXEP. Aries W. Hat. It feels to be L. Loved. The life in his eyes begins to fade away, and he finds himself in all too similar void that he read from the reincarnation novels he would read. Before he could question his whereabouts, a bright light suddenly appears, making Henry cover his eyes. When he opens them, he becomes shocked, not because it's a Rob when it wasn't, but it's none other than Chaos itself from the Seven Deadly Sins universe. What the hell? He exclaims, not expecting to meet what is essentially God of the Seven Deadly Sins manga anime, who was sealed away by the Demon King and the Supreme Deity. It just floats above him, not doing anything or even making a sound. Qui velant prote nunc autem meliorum vitam elegit quae candidatum ad SEUs alus similis chaos facti regi autem et renaci in specie unis, qui aliquando fuit in rerum natura demonium pessimum et terribilis nimis, it says in an ancient language that has long been forgotten. And then it suddenly goes blank, and so Henry begins his new life in the world of Seven Deadly Sins as Meliodas. Well, side chapter is finished. I hope that this will explain some recent decisions I made in the last chapter. And I wrote that chapter without getting some sleep because of my insomnia that often appears out of nowhere. So the next chapter I plan to release around Saturday or Sunday, cause I plan on writing on my other fanfics for the rest of the week. Dragonlord 04 creators, thoughts. 15 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 15. Unexpected boost. A few days after Meliodas destroyed the entire wall of the palace from within Chandler's quarters, Meliodas can be seen laying on his bed unconscious in his old room, with Meliscula curled up next to him asleep, as the room itself has hardly changed since he left around 60 years ago. He is currently covered in multiple layers of bandages, considering that his body rejected all the healing spells that Olivia attempted onto him, which caused her immense worry for her son's well-being. Before she could panic any further, however, she noticed that his body seemed to be regenerating at a rapid rate compared to how high-ranked demons usually do when they get injured, although in Chandler's defense, when she confronted him not long after setting Meliodas into his old room, said that he was caught off guard when Meliodas suddenly gained a noticeable boost in power, and he claimed that his demeanor changed from he usually was, all the while as he was begging to her on the floor for forgiveness, causing her to sigh, remembering how much she used to terrify everyone and everything, even her own husband, back in the early days when there was only Endura roaming around the demon realm before he banished them to the depths of purgatory. I need to figure this out, cause it is not possible, though maybe. Olivia looks at her wrist where a mark resides where her husband placed the seal onto her, much to her harsh disapproval at the time. The seal contains a symbol that represents that of a fox with its tail curved downward, almost as if it is hibernating, waiting to be released. Maybe I can find a way to finally be free from his control. Though I'll do it after this little one here is born. Caressing her stomach where her next unborn child lies, she couldn't but smile a bit while thinking of the child's future where Meliodas protects his sibling, but the thought of her husband ruins it because she knew that he was influencing her emotions because of the curse. When she was created several thousand years ago, her purpose was to be his equal, but as time passed, the Demon King slowly began to fear the full extent of her power. He fully realized this fact many centuries later when she defeated the original demon with some effort while using That, which made her a threat to his ruling position as the sole ruler to the demon clan. After he separated the original demon into 2 souls, he then, while her guard was down, placed a curse onto her and it sealed around half of her powers. Clenching her fist tightly at the memory, she tries to hold off her demon mark from appearing as she kisses Meliodas on the forehead before leaving his bedroom to a secret room that not even the Demon King knows about. Dash 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 dash. A few days earlier. Demon King Pav. Hearing the explosion from Chandler's quarters while I was on my way to give something to Meliodas to ensure his loyalty to me, but seeing Olivia carrying him over her shoulders stopped me from doing so, knowing how protective she is of the boy. It's still hard to believe that she once didn't care for any sense of life aside from me, because back then, she enjoyed putting her enemies through great pain, both physically and emotionally. She was known for being cruel and at times bloodthirsty, to the point where even I was apprehensive to an extent around her presence. Though despite those qualities, it was one of the many things I loved about her, and yet it all changed when I had sealed around half her power. And she changed completely once Meliodas was born. Over the years before Meliodas embarked on his journey, she became much more friendly to those who feared her in the past and more suspicious of my activities involving the treaty with the goddess clan, despite sending her on missions to consult with the other races such as the vampire clan, who are currently my vassals in case if a war breaks out, though I wouldn't, as it would be the perfect opportunity to make Meliodas into the perfect warrior once I bestow this commandment onto him. Time to enact my plan once my wife leaves his side. Dash 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 dash. Third person Pav. Present. Moments after Olivia leaves Meliodas's room. A portal can be seen opening up and the Demon King steps out of it with an expression of indifference as he looms over Meliodas. Before Meliscula could wake up while sensing a presence near them. Somnum. The Demon King casts a sleeping spell temporarily on her, which forces Meliscula to fall asleep. He then turns off the cloaking spell he placed onto the commandment that he decided to give Meliodas. The commandment, now fully revealed, can be seen floating beside the Demon King at its full glory, though it's not what most would expect if it was a timeline that most would often believe it was to stay correlation to the original manga. Anyone who shows their back to the wielder will become an obedient slave of me and by extension, the commandment's holder. Quietly mutters the Demon King as to not wake up Meliodas while directing his hand towards his body, and the commandment follows as it then goes into his body, which causes his body some discomfort with his face scrunching up with pain. Now that's done, once I find the other candidates, Meliodas will be the one to lead them. The Demon King then quickly opens up a portal and goes into it before his wife could sense his magical presence, not realizing that he just made one of the biggest mistakes in his life. Dash 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 dash. Meliodas Mindscape. Meliodas can be seen meditating in a flat grass field that is reminiscent to a land that his original counterpart might immediately recognize. The sun blazes over the surroundings with its scorching heat, but that doesn't bother Meliodas in the slightest, since it is his own soul which is several times its original size due to the merge, which can give a certain individual whose pride holds no bounds a run for their money when comparing their souls. This is image training, which is an out-of-body experience while asleep, in which he learned during his time in the Crimson Forest. By imagining an environment exactly like reality, Meliodas could visualize what he remembers from the various settings of the multiple anime that his predecessor had seen before, and he uses it to become stronger. Feeling a disturbance in his surroundings, Meliodas opens his eyes and looks up into the sky to see it darken as the commandant can be seen trying to latch itself onto his soul like a parasite. Looks like dear old dad actually did it. Perfect, though I didn't expect it to be the commandment of piety. With a smirk, Meliodas begins to stand up and he manifests his newly awakened demon mark along with his wings, and he launches himself into the air where the commandment can be seen with its tentacles trying to pry itself into his soul. While in the air, Meliodas lights his fists up with enchant hellblaze and he prepares several rear hand punches towards the commandment and manages to land them with exceptional effort, causing it to latch off from his soul. The commandment then screeches in surprise, not expecting its host to fight back against them, and it summons several amounts of tentacles and it fires them at Meliodas, who dodges all of them with ease. Didn't expect that, did ya? Well, too bad because I'm going to assimilate you into my very being. While quickly dodging multiple more of its appendages, Meliodas grabs onto one and pulls it towards himself, causing the commandment to be propelled towards him. Once again lighting up his fists with enchant hellblaze, Meliodas directs his body at certain angle and twists his torso, causing him to deliver a devastating punch into the center of the commandment, which causes it to crack like glass. Not letting up, Meliodas at a fast pace begins to land several more punches in different places from behind along with its sides. Once he is done, the commandment can be seen with several holes in its being, with it now too weak to fulfill what it came here to do. Now time for my soul to absorb it. Once I absorb it, its curse should not affect me like the others, since it's going to be a part of my soul now. His soul then begins to engulf the commandment, and Meliodas begins to sudden increase in his power due to the boost a high-ranked demon like himself receives for just simply absorbing a commandment, but at the same time they're cursed with obeying its rule along with some sense of loyalty to his father, and he got rid of that aspect. Dash 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 dash. Reality. Gasp. Meliodas immediately opens his eyes and he begins to feel an intense headache happening. He quickly takes off the bandages covering his body, which was most likely his mother's doing. He then heads off to a nearby mirror while ignoring the pain from forcing the commandment to become a part of his being. Feeling a disturbance, Meliscula quickly opens her eyes and sees Meliodas heading towards the mirror for some reason. Once Meliodas stands in front of the mirror shirtless, aside from the multiple scars across his body, he ignores the fact that the wounds he received days prior are completely healed, as the most prominent detail in his reflection causes him to smile when he looks at it. His demon mark has changed once again, with it now being mostly located directly on his forehead, making it look more refined when compared to the way it looked before. It's only a matter of time before I can match up to father's strength. And once that time comes, I'll kill him. For now I'll pretend to be his loyal soldier. With a smile, he then goes back to his bed to wait for the next day to begin with Meliscula, who has gone back to sleep. Alright, there will be another interlude chapter after this, and then the next arc will begin. Meliodas' Commandment of Piety Place, 143,160. Dragonlord 04 Creators, Thoughts. Chapter 16. Surprising Event. The next day. Location. Meliodas' bedroom. Dash 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 dash. Meliodas' Pav. To think that I forcefully fused a commandment to my very soul, and well, even though it's not the commandment of love like my original counterpart had, but nonetheless. The commandment of piety is also a very powerful commandment when compared to the rest of the other commandments in terms of its ability. Having others under my control will be very useful when the time comes for when I rebel against Father, especially when I can decide whether to activate the commandment or not against those who are considered pathetic in my eyes. Though I did notice that my wounds healed faster than normal from what I can remember from the multiple injuries I endured over the 60 years I spent training to not only acquire the physical half of full counter but other abilities as well, such as what could be my own variation of ice manipulation. While not on the level as several other characters from shows I've seen in my past life, I can still structure my ice to be deadly against my opponents. And even if I don't remember the aspects of what was once my previous life, I will live on to make better choices, even if it means throwing away my emotions to do so. Dash 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 dash. Third person Pav. While Meliodas was muttering to himself very quietly about the decisions he'll make in the future, he doesn't notice Meliscula's power slowly rise, basically indicating that her evolution is starting. Meliscula slowly begins to wake up, and then she suddenly begins to feel odd for some reason, like something wants to burst out of her body. Her eyes sudden burst open and her body begins constrict itself in a painful way. Hiss. Meliscula emits a loud hissing sound as she falls off the bed onto the stone-hard floor, and her body begins to convulse out of proportion. What the hell? Meliscula, what's wrong? Hearing Meliscula, he quickly turns around with a slightly panicked look in his expression, but he notices her power rising, causing him to calm down as he remembered what his mentor told him about her apparent evolution. So this is what Master Chandler meant when he mentioned that Meliscula was on the brink of evolving. Well, let's see what happens, though it might be how she gets her human-like body. I'll grab some clothing from my storage just in case. Meliodas quickly summons a portal via his perfect storage ability, and he grabs some clothing that he used to wear as a child while watching what might possibly be Meliscula's evolution. The best way to describe this process is like a cocoon hatching and out reveals a new form of some sorts, but this is without the cocoon, as the snake features on Meliscula's body are slowly replaced with human-like ones, and she also slowly begins to grow arms and legs as well. Seeing this, Meliodas quickly sets the clothing onto his bed and quickly steps out of his room into the hallway after seeing that her white skin is changing color and what seems to be hair begins to form on the top of her head. Using the next few minutes of his time, he sits down onto the floor and begins to meditate in order to strengthen his mind, and he amplifies this by applying his magic to install some sort of dome within his mind and soul as to not be affected by any sort of psychic attacks that'll affect his memories and personality. A few minutes later. I hope she's alright cause it got quiet not too long ago. You know what, I'm gonna check regardless. Getting up from his position, Meliodas then turns around and slowly begins to open the door to check on Meliscula's condition. Looking into the room with the door slightly open, he sees nothing out of the ordinary, but he sees a small figure covering itself in his bed, but the clothing he placed is missing. The covers begin to move slightly, revealing a bit of what seemed to be long, pink hair. Getting out of the covers wearing what seems to be clothing fit for a child born from a noble family, Meliodas's clothing from when he was a child, when he first made clothes out of the monsters he killed during his time in the Crimson Forest. Her appearance is reminiscent of her original counterpart, with the main differences being that she currently has the appearance of a little girl, considering that she has yet to be fully grown, and her eyes can be described with her irises being crimson red and her pupils being that of a snake. So that's what her eyes look like without her demon mark. Slightly astonished at her appearance, which could be easily be mistaken for a vampire, unlike most who would find this sight cute or adorable, Meliodas just nods with a proud smile, seeing that Meliscula has grown stronger. Elliot. As Sama. Saying her first word Abbott with a stutter because of her long tongue, Meliscula slowly approaches but stumbles towards Meliodas, who gets surprised at her display of intelligence as he now contemplates on how to handle this situation. Yes. Wondering what she was going to ask, Meliodas walks towards her and crouches down to meet her level, seeing that she's about up to his knee in terms of height currently, which is not surprising considering that she's currently 10 years old. Can why you carry me? She says with a meek tone mixed with embarrassment, as seen by her slightly blushing cheeks, which adds on to the effect of her puppy eyes. Sigh, considering that you are barely learning to walk, I'll carry you, but you have to promise something for me when the time comes. Meliscula nods from his statement and he wraps one of his hands around her small waist and he lifts her legs so she can sit onto his shoulder. Better. Meliscula simply responds by hugging his neck with her arms filled with genuine love, and Meliodas just shrugs it off and heads out of his room to meet with his mother, who must be worried sick for him considering what happened a few days prior. Location: unknown room. Olivia can seen conducting some concoctions with her magic in front of a cauldron. Olivia Pav. How could I be so blind? Even though I was created to love Asmodeus, Demon King's name, but he never returned it, much to my obliviousness all those years ago, because I was a much different person back then. I would slaughter those who would slander his name as a king with brute force alone, but he never paid any attention to me. And when we did it, it would only be when he wanted it, and it was just that, filled with nothing but just pure lust. I enjoyed it at first, but over time I saw through his true intentions for the purpose of those activities. And when I finally knew why, it was already too late, because it was when I found out I was pregnant with his child. At first, I wanted to get rid of it, but a part of me prevented me from doing so, and it would end up being one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. Meliodas, my little bundle of joy, and the reason for why I haven't ended my own existence. From the moment he was brought into this world, I wanted nothing more than to just protect him from what my husband had initially planned for him. During the first few years, he was weird from the way he spoke, and I thought it was because he couldn't properly fathom how our customs worked due to his young age, and it seems that I was right, because his demeanor changed when Chandler trained him. Getting out of my thoughts, the cauldron sparkles after putting in various ingredients from the creatures I've killed over the years. I quickly grab a glass bottle and then I grab a spoon as I slowly scoop up the contents, and I carefully place it into what would be my chance at true freedom from this curse that placed onto me by Asmodeus. The curse made me do things that I did not want, and for a time I could resist, and that was all I could do, and it lead to this. She looks at her stomach, showing that she has gotten pregnant. Third person Pav. With this, it'll guarantee that if I were to die, instead of going to the necropolis like all the other races do when they perish, my soul would go through the cycle of reincarnation, but it will be random as to what race I'll be reborn into. Even if it is one of those low-born races such as those humans, I hope that I'll find true love in my next life, but I don't want to leave Meliodas and his future siblings with that wretched scoundrel of a king. With her decision already decided, Olivia quickly drinks the potion she created and gulps it all down in one breath before leaving the room vacated to see how Meliodas is doing. Dash 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 dash. Meliodas with Meliscula softly squeezing his neck with her small arms and legs roams through the hallways with a bored expression on his face. If anyone were to see his predicament, they would faint because of how adorable Meliscula looks currently, especially in her current position along with her closed-eyed smile. Sat, you've been like this ever since you hatched from your egg. I'm not complaining, I am just curious because this is no ordinary sense of attachment to me, is it? Immediately after asking this question, Meliscula just simply kisses him on the cheek, causing him to abruptly stop his movements. Foo, because you're going to be my mate when I become an adult. She excitedly exclaims, causing Meliodas's mind to shut down for a couple seconds while he processes her answer. Oh shit. When he finally comes to, he realizes the situation he put himself in when Meliscula licked him when she first hatched back at his house, which causes him to have a mental crisis, but he quickly gets over it, showing that despite that error, he'll fulfill that role for her when she grows up. Before he could continue, he feels the palace shaking and he as well as Meliscula both shiver a bit knowing the cause of this. Dash 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 dash. Location: Meliodas' bedroom. Where is he? A dark black aura can be seen oozing out of Olivia when she saw that Meliodas wasn't in his bed resting because he could see the bandages laying on the floor. The things I will do to that boy when I find him. A sinister grin appears on her face, showing that despite changing from who she was before, old habits still remain. To be continued. Alright, chapter done and Meliscula has evolved. Next chapter will take place a few weeks after this, but it will be the start of the next arc. I'm going to take a break after this because I'm getting my wisdom teeth removed tomorrow. Dragonlord 04 creators, thoughts? 49 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 17, Recruiting 1/6. A few weeks later. Dash dash dash. Quick small recap to a few weeks earlier, when Olivia finally found Meliodas. Let's just say that before she could do what she wanted to do to him when she found him. Her plans quickly vanished when she saw Meliscula looking very adorable as she hugged his neck, and she quickly snatched her off his neck with a quick burst of speed in which Meliodas barely caught, and he saw his mother cuddling Meliscula like a little doll, much to her slight protest at first, but she realized that there is nothing she could do and so accepted this fate as long as she can still spend time with her future mate lover. Dash 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 dash. Location: Demon King's throne room. Meliodas, who is now wearing a completely different outfit from the one he arrived in when he visited his father's kingdom. He is wearing a white, sleeveless coat adorned by a batch of black X-shaped buttons from all around the high collar, black lining on the coat, a dark red color on the inside, and a coat's tail. He is also wearing black pants with matching colored boots. Of course, this is none other than what his counterpart wore when he was leading the commandments. And, just so you all know, this will be his main outfit for a long while. This was actually a gift from his mother in which he greatly appreciated when she first gifted it to him a few days ago, and because there are still remnants of the personality he had as a child, he almost flat out wanted to pump his fist into the air, but he kept it well hidden with a stoic expression much to the slight discomfort of his mother, but it vanished when he gave her a small smile. Dash dash dash. Back to the current situation, Meliodas can be seen kneeling down directly in front of his father's throne with an unreadable expression, with the guards who are on standby per usual, but they couldn't help but feel a bit uneasy seeing how strong their prince has become in such a short amount of time, or at least in demon terms. Well, Meliodas, I called you here because I have a task for you to fulfill, and you can take as much time as you want for now. But know this, should you fail to complete such a task, I won't hesitate to kill you right here. Looks towards Olivia, who is glaring daggers at him while sitting in her throne after hearing that, and don't you dare interfere or else there will be consequences. Meliodas barely manages to push down his fear and anger at his father's statement, but knowing that he is not yet strong enough, he nods with a neutral expression on his face. Olivia reluctantly backs down, knowing what her husband meant by consequences. Good, here is the list of the candidates I have chosen for you and bring them here since they along with you are going to be a part of an elite group should a war break out between our clan and the goddess clan in the near future. Summoning a scroll with his magic, Asmodeus levitates it towards Meliodas who grabs it once it stops floating in front of him. Just know that some of what that list contains are already completed, but I would highly recommend that you do the most difficult first. Meliodas nods, although slightly surprised, cause this isn't how his father would act around him, or is this a facade for him to lower his guard? Good, now go and recruit the demons listed, even if you have to do it by force. I don't care what happens, it's an order by their king. Another thing, don't bring that Vescoid with you. You must do this alone. Now go. Meliodas once again obediently nods and rises from his kneeling position and heads out of the throne room. Moments after leaving the throne room. Alright, let's see what's on this damn list, because for all I know, there could be some changes considering that I'm the holder of the commandment of piety instead of love. Meliodas quietly mutters to himself before leaning onto a wall as he opens the scroll to see who is listed. Commandment list. 1. Piety Meliodas, obtained. 2. Faith Meliscula, obtained. 3. Love Belian, yet to acquire. 4. Patience Zeno, yet to acquire. 5. Purity Derriere, yet to acquire. 6. Repose Ironic, yet to acquire. 7. Reticence Monspeed, yet to acquire. 8. Selflessness Gauther, yet to acquire. 9. Pacifism Rajin, yet to acquire. 10. Truth Gallant, yet to acquire. So I was right, huh? Seems that instead of Greyrod taking the position for pacifism, it's none other than Derriere's sister. Speaking of Derriere, I wonder what she is doing right now since it has been a few weeks since I last saw her. Putting the scroll into his pocket dimension perfect storage, and leaning off the wall, he walks down the hallway while passing by some servants who get out of his way out of respect and fear. And not only that, seems that arrogant fool Belian is also included in this list as well. An interesting set of circumstances this has turned into. Meliodas continues to prowl around through the hallway before stopping in front of the main door which leads to the city outside. How the hell did father even get the names of these demons anyway? Guess it must be one of the advantages of being the demon king. And knowing mother, she's probably on her way to distract Meliscula to keep her from coming with me. Opening the 2 double doors, Meliodas takes in a deep breath while feeling the breeze that hits him as he looks up into the dark purple sky while taking in the view of the kingdom of its entirely. I can't believe how large this kingdom is. From what I can estimate, it's more than likely several times larger than the kingdom of Leones, considering the large amount of red and gray demons patrolling through the air making sure that there's no destruction. As for murder, from what Chandler said to me about that topic when I asked him many years ago, and his response was, the strong survive and the weak die, but those who are overly arrogant of themselves are the ones that die the quickest no matter how strong or weak they are. Crossing his arms, Meliodas closes his eyes and activates a tracking spell to where he can locate the candidates for the 10 commandments, since he basically stole a portion of his father's power without him noticing that when he made the commandment a true part of his own power, and so he gained this ability from that. Shit, that is far away, and even with my abilities enhanced to an extent, I still need to control myself should I release more of my power. Apparently from what I heard from Master Chandler was that my Endura nature was causing me to act differently, though he wouldn't realize what had actually happened that day. Manifesting his wings, Meliodas propels himself into the air, which creates a crater under his feet, and he heads off into the direction of where he can sense one of the candidates. A few weeks later. Location. In a similar environment to the Crimson Forest. Meliodas can be seen lighting up a campfire made up of his black flames as he cooks a large turkey-like corpse, and he lays down onto a log with his arms crossed over his head, and he thinks about what had occurred over the past few weeks. He thought about the time he had to fly through several blood storms that were filled with the souls of the damned, and he also had to fight off several creatures that stood over 200 meters in height, but he easily killed them all with his clones from his ability from using Lostbane and by using Absolute Counter. Seeing the bodies explode into pieces made him smile a bit before he decided to store some of the blood into small glass containers for later use. Whistles, well, I'm only halfway there anyway, and to think that not every soul could go to the necropolis after death. Waves his hand to make the flames vanish, seeing as the food is now fully cooked, and it's time for lunch. These types of creatures are hard to come by since I essentially made them endangered over the years I spent training to learn a whole ability without any sort of instructions because someone forgot how to do said ability, but I'm not complaining. Meliodas sits up and he then creates a plate made out of his own darkness and grabs a piece of the cooked meat and he places it on the plate. Claps his hands together loudly, itadakimasu. And he then chows down the large piece of meat at a fast rate, making it seem like that he hasn't had any sort food for the last few weeks, but it's only because of his high metabolism. A few minutes later. Well, that meal was satisfying, to burps loudly, ahem. Satisfying to say the least. Meliodas looks onto the skeleton of what was once a majestic creature that was reduced to a simple meal for him. I'll stay here for the night, I guess. Like dear old dad said, I can take as much time as I want, but I also want to explore the rest of the demon realm along the way, and it was the perfect opportunity to do so. Meliodas fires a small blast of black flames at his temporary campsite, causing it to light up the area around him, revealing trees with a purple colorization instead of the crimson color that he grew used to back at his home in the Crimson Forest. Yawns, well, time to sleep, I guess, and before I do. Meliodas activates a barrier that covers up his entire campsite to ensure that nothing would sneak up on him during the night. There we go. And Meliodas then closes his eyes as he goes into whatever he dreams about every day as he softly snores. To be continued. 41 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 18. Recruiting 2/6. A few weeks later. Meliodas Pav. Man, traversing through several environments that have the capacity to kill you instantly is no joke. It was thanks to my ice abilities, which when enhanced with my commandment made me protected from the toxicity, which in turn could kill an human in a matter of milliseconds before their senses could pick up on it. As it turns out, the location where I'm heading to is actually a village, and a large one at that, considering that from what Chandler taught me about the geographic locations surrounding the demon realm is that there is only one kingdom, and of course it belonged to Father, considering that he's basically the king of hell down here. Seems I'm already close considering the amount of magic I can sense. Well, time to make a entrance. Third person Pav. Location. Aldergate Village. The demons that live in this village are known for being gamblers as well as having a variety of brothels in store. Inside a local bar lies several tables with multiple demons watching over a poker match that is currently going on. However, there is one particular demon who is in this event, and he's a very tall and slender humanoid demon. At first sight, he can be mistaken for someone wearing a full set of red and silver armor. But in reality, this is his actual body, and right now, he is gambling for more money so he can buy more alcohol for himself and maybe get some bitches along the way. This is Galland, otherwise known as the candidate for the commandment of truth. I swear if I lose this bet, I'm gonna kill you all otherwise and then take all your money and then drink my winnings over your bodies and be done for the day. With a threatening tone, Galland throws some chips, making a bet rather than a call of with 30 silver coins instead of 25. And 1 silver coin equals $15 USD. Well, fuck you too, Galland. You drunken waste of a demon. Just because you're bigger doesn't mean that you can just casually threaten anyone who is distasteful in your eyes. A random demon bites back with a severely annoyed tone, hoping that this cocky bastard gets what's coming to him, and he taps on the table for check. Yeah, whatever you say, you small prick. Looking at his cards as the dealer places them, and it is revealed to be a 7 of diamonds, and what he has is a 5 of diamonds and a 1 of clubs, and he sees a ace of spades, king of clubs, and a 2 of spades placed on the table with only one card left that has yet to reveal itself by the dealer. He taps for the dealer to check, and now it is the other demon's turn to either call or raise. Damn, I just spent all the money I earned in this pot and I can't risk it, otherwise I'll be broke. I can also kill this bitch after this and no one would even bat an eye as to what happened. The only thing that people fear around here is power, and I just so happen to be the strongest around here. There's no way anyone could defeat me. Thinking cockily, Galland puts on a seemingly realistic smile on his armor-like face, which in turn pisses off the demon betting against him. You know what? Fuck it. All in. The demon pushes all his chips, which is a stockpile of silver coins along with some gold coins, into the center of the table, much to the surprise of most of the demons in the establishment and to Galland's irritation at the bold move. Hey, suck on that, you cocky bastard. The demon begins to form a smug look on his face, believing that this will force him to fold his current hand. Shit. What the hell do I do now? Internally panicking, Galland is now stuck in a situation where he either has to bluff or fold, but that will tarnish his reputation. He quickly checks his 2 cards just to be sure, making it look like he's got something up his sleeve. All in. He pushes all of his chips, much to the other demons' shock, since they bluffed hardcore, and this amount is enough for a few months' worth of rent since they had yet to pay said rent, and if they didn't get it by tomorrow, the punishment is death. Shit. Fuck. The demon begins to sweat terribly, and before he could stop the dealer from revealing the last card, a sword of some kind embeds itself into his head, causing it to fly right off his body, killing him in the process, in which his head lands directly at the end of the establishment, much to the surprise of Galland and the spectators along with the dealer. The sword then suddenly begins to levitate itself into the air, and it begins to propel itself at a rapid speed towards the main entrance of the bar, landing directly into someone's hand with blood smearing all over the sword. That someone is none other than Meliodas, who puts Lostbane back in its scabbard right next to where Godsbane is located, while looking on into the bar with a neutral expression, but due to the strain his commandment puts upon his aura concealment. Half of the customers in the bar faint from sensing such power, but Galland is shaking in excitement, and before he could react, Meliodas delivers a vicious punch to his face. Then he grabs the back of his head and slams his face into the ground, creating a crater underneath before throwing him out of the bar. That should let him know not to challenge me in the near future. Without sparing a glance to the dealer, Meliodas throws a bag of coins in his hand, which is enough for him to fix the damages he caused as he steps outside. Once outside, he approaches the nearly unconscious Galland, who is seen to be greatly hurt despite the fact that Meliodas didn't put any effort into his punches. He then crunches down in front of Galland's face before telling him why he's here. By the order of the Demon King, you are hereby an candidate of an future elite force that'll be formed in the near future. And if you don't follow said orders, I'll do more to you than that sad sack of a demon if you refuse to follow the request. Do I make myself clear? Glaring into his eyes, Galland with no choice nods his head, and Meliodas grabs his head as he gives him the coordinates of where to go, and he kicks him far away into the direction to give him a head start. Now that's out of the way, I wonder what's so special about this village anyway. Aside from the gambling and the brothels here, there's not much to do around here. Ignoring the fearful looks from the locals, Meliodas then takes off into the sky via with his wings forming on his back, and he heads off towards the next location of the next candidate, and luckily it's not as far. I should probably learn some teleportation magic so I don't have to make trips like this often. While in the air, Meliodas begins to think on what other abilities he could learn in the near future. A few days later. Without any rest, Meliodas spiraled through terrains, including an ocean made up of the bones of the Enduras that were unknowingly to him slaughtered by his mother, which reduced their population to the brink of extinction even to this day. That was a rough few days for me. I actually got some bruises from hitting some creatures akin to Lovecraftian culture from that damn sea of bones. Thought Meliodas while continuously flying to his next destination. Swanhold Village. In the far distance, he sees another village which is more rural when compared to the last one, considering the large amount of farmland around here, especially the neatly cut red grass along with the livestock in their enclosures. Meliodas stops his flight in midair as he uses his enhanced senses to locate where the next candidate, and to his surprise, he senses two of them, and it looked as if they lived together. Interesting, seems unlike my last entrance. These demons already sound more compliant than Galland. I'll be more lenient if they are willing to cooperate. A couple seconds later, Meliodas lands right in front of a brick-like structure akin to that of a farmhouse. He heads up to the front door, which is around 2 times his size. Knock. 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 Knocking 3 times against the door, Meliodas patiently waits so he can deliver his message to these 2 individuals. He hears some noises coming from inside as footsteps can be heard heading for the door. The door then begins to open and out reveals a humanoid body with a bald head and pointed ears. Their most notable feature is their large dark brown mustache that is curved upward over their head, connecting to form an arch. He is shirtless while wearing green pants. Meliodas looks up at the demon while crossing his arms as his companion appears as well, with their appearance similar to that of a small creature bearing a strong resemblance to a rag doll. They have white skin and a large oval-shaped head with round eyes and a wide mouth. He also has relatively long, thick arms with long black claws and stubby segmented legs. Yes, answers the tall humanoid demon with a barely noticeable tone of sheer nervousness, knowing that from scrolls he has read, this is none other than the prince himself. Huh. Didn't know that Ironic and Zeno were a duo in the original. Then again, there is hardly any information regarding this realm. Meliodas summons his list and he gestures to Ironic and Zeno on why he has come to this specific location. You see this? You are hereby requested to head off to the kingdom per exposition with regards from a order by the Demon King himself. I suggest that you go immediately, otherwise I'll have to use physical force if you don't comply. Meliodas releases a bit of his aura to signify his statement, threat, making the duo at the door sweat in intimidation. Ironic and Zeno madly nod in fear, and Zeno positions himself onto Aronak's shoulder with wings appearing from his back, and they take off since the location to the kingdom was already on the list. Good. Now on to the next candidate. He closes his eyes as to sense the location, and what he senses causes him to grin evilly. Bellion EH. Seems I'll have to ensure that his arrogance is kept in check, otherwise I won't hesitate to torture him for my amusement if he rebels against my orders when I lead the commandments. Wings then appear from his back and Meliodas propels himself into the air at a fast rate, eager to put this demon in his place when he meets him. To be continued. After this, expect like 2 or 3 chapters to be published at the same time at a later date, and that also goes for my other main fanfics as well, so it might take a while. Dragonlord 04 creators, thoughts? 25 comments, 0 vote. Taking a break? No, I'm not dropping.